something I was thinking about. I was trying to think about it for the intro, as
Okay.
I wanted to bring in like the teenagers with attitude part somewhere.
Okay.
And then the more I thought about that, is that like teenagers with attitude is such like a general statement. I feel like that would qualify any teenager. Like why did they pick like those 5 or 6 kids? Not to mention, like, I feel like teenagers with attitude makes it sound like these people should be assholes. And they pick, like, the nicest kids with attitude to be the Power Rangers.
But yeah, like, they're valedictorians, they're all straight-A students, they're model citizens, they kind of don't work a job, but they do, because, like, Jason teaches karate to youth at the youth center and juice bar. I think you find out at some point, like, Zach, Tommy, and Jason are on the football team. Kimberly still somehow keeps up, like, an amateur gymnastics career the whole time.
Yeah, I
like,
remember that.
Somehow they have all the time in the freaking world. And you're right, they are, like, like, model citizens.
Because I feel like with that description, like, teenagers with attitude, like, it's more likely Bulk and Skull should have been Power Rangers.
Hey, Alpha, find the F-ups and get them here.
Right.
Zone in on the real douche nozzles.
These 5 or 6 kids are not attitudey enough. We need more attitude. Look again.
Yeah, and I mean, thinking back on it, that was such a buzzword play, to have like an 8-year-old watching the show and have them say that, give us teenagers with attitude.
Actually, you know what, now I think about it too, I think that was something the Honest Trailer pointed out, is that
really?
In the movie, for like, the 90s movie, when they go through, like, I think they open the movie with like a paragraph summary where someone's like setting the stage for what the Power Rangers are.
Yeah, it's
and
the alien female chick from another planet.
Yeah, the half-naked chick.
Yep.
And I think at the part of the description when they should say teenagers with attitude, they don't say that. They flip it somewhere.
Oh, yeah, they say, to transport 6 extraordinary teenagers.
I think that's it, yeah.
Yeah, it's just left as extraordinary teenagers. Oh, dude, oh man, I'm watching that movie tomorrow.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and his Super Friends, where we know as well as you do that Rocky was the worst. Just the absolute worst. Horribly, horribly terrible. I'm your host, Brian Labick. My guest for this episode is the Alpha 5 to my Zordon, Josh Zorch.
Aye, aye, aye!
I was wondering if you'd go there. That was perfect. Just to preamble, as I've been doing for the last couple weeks, I just want to remind everyone that we're getting close to our 100th episode. This, I think, marks episode 90, if my count is correct. So we got 10 more to go before it's up there. We'll probably record before the 100th, so we might only have like another month or so. But my idea for that one is to get some, hopefully, fan interaction for that. So if you guys have any topic suggestions, questions, anything you may want to ask us, suggest to us, throw it out there. So if you would like to get in touch with us, you can either find us on the Facebook page, which is probably the most active place to find us. I think we're pretty active on Facebook. You can search for Bry Guy and Super Friends on Facebook or go to www.facebook.com/BryGuySuperFriends. You can also email us. We have an email address for bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com, or you can tweet us at BGSuperFriends on Twitter. All of those avenues work. We will respond to all of them. So we'll see if we can get anything together for the 100th, and we'll roll with what you give us. But for this episode, if you haven't guessed already, we'll be talking about the Power Rangers movie. The first movie in a potentially 6-movie arc, according to Haim Saban, the man behind Power Rangers. And just to sort of set the stage, give us a little bit of synergy here. Fun fact, and it's something that Josh brought up to me before we actually started doing this. Probably a little over 2 years ago, Josh and I recorded the pilot episode for Bry Guy and his Super Friends. One of the topics we covered at that time was the Power Rangers short film that hit the internet a few weeks before that. When we recorded that episode, and then when it was finally uploaded, I think the date that I wrote down for that was March 22nd, 2015. So we're recording this one on March 30th, 2017. So this is just over 2 years, and we're still talking about Power Rangers. Just to sort of set the stage before we get in the movie, I wanted to sort of go back and just sort of, reminisce, maybe get a little bit nostalgic about our Power Rangers I don't know if I want to go as far as say fandom. Maybe more for you than me, but
Yeah, a bit.
Our experience with Power Rangers, we'll go that way.
Sure. I don't know if mine I wouldn't say fandom in the way that the word has become used now, because it wasn't, after I dropped it when I was 12 years old, it wasn't something like, I kept hidden in my back pocket and didn't tell anyone about it, even though I harbored a secret, ongoing love for it. It's like, for a lot of people, Transformers are now, or Voltron, or He-Man, all those types of things. It was it was a big part, central part of my childhood, pop culture, that I still really, really enjoy if I ever went back to it. But, I don't have any, like Power Coin tattoos or anything.
You may have some toys and memorabilia though, right?
Quite a bit, yeah. There was probably 3 or 4 years in a row, birthdays and Christmas, where I got, all I asked for were, Power Ranger toys. And, I didn't go for the chintzy ones that were like, the 2 or 3 inch, little action figure toys. No,
right.
the ones I wanted were like the big, huge, like 10-inch figures and the Zords that were like a foot tall.
Yeah, I remember those.
Yeah, I got all those stashed away in the boxes. Not nearly in mint, don't get me wrong. A lot of, when you're 9 years old and you want to open your Christmas present, you're as careful as you can be, but some of those boxes took quite a beating. But yeah, it's still up in my mom's attic. There
you go. See, now you got to bring it out and play with it, just for nostalgic's sake.
Actually, I just remembered right now, when I was in my band in high school, we had like our practice area down in the basement of my parents' house, and for a little while I kind of turned it into, kind of like my lounging area as well. So like I brought one of our like rocking chairs down there, and this like big long extra like coffee table that we never used anymore. And for a while, I might be able to take out pictures somewhere. For a while, when I was like 17, I took all of my Power Rangers out, at least the Zords, if I remember, and put them all together and like displayed them out on that table in the basement.
It's the centerpiece for the room.
For a while, yeah.
That's great.
So it's been a long, but they've been boxed away for at least 15 years.
That's one thing I don't think I ever got any toys for Power Rangers. I remember watching the show and being into it, like the Mighty Morphin show, and being into it, but I don't think I ever got the toys.
It was the one thing, like, growing up, we didn't really have the ability to do a whole lot, so if there was, like, one thing that each of us latched onto, and it was, like, special treat stuff, like I said, it's, like, birthdays and Christmas.
Yeah.
That's what I asked Santa for. So, like, fortunately, I was still able to, at the same time, listen to me and talking about, like, first world American kid growing up problems in the 90s. Like, come on.
See, I think for me it was like, because that was like mid-90s, right? When the show started coming out?
93, yep.
Okay. Yeah, I think, I got into the show, and then somewhere in, like, I want to say like 95 was when Hasbro started releasing Star Wars toys again. Like they had been off the shelves forever, and then they started making new Star Wars toys. So that's where my, kid money went, was new Star Wars stuff.
Okay.
So I think I overlooked Power Rangers for more Star Wars stuff.
Yeah, I left. I didn't really leave. I had wrestling toys when I was a kid, that went in conjunction with, the original Ninja Turtles toys. Mm-hmm. Little action figures. And then when I left those, that's when I was like 9, that's when I went to Power Rangers.
There you go.
And then I was there for like 3 years, and then I was 13 and realized I should probably stop watching this show. And, just like another, like at that point, like teenage obsessions took over, like music and stuff. So
right.
It just went from like one thing to another.
So which one of the shows did you watch? Was it Mighty Morphin? Did you go past Mighty Morphin?
I did, so I was trying to figure that out because I never really understood the whole delineation till years later. I don't really remember the show going through an official rebranding until maybe they went to Power Rangers Zeo.
Right.
And that was like season 5. So really the first 3 seasons are under the normal umbrella brand of Mighty Morphin Power Rangers.
Mm-hmm.
So for anyone that grew up like remembering it, like that takes you all the way through the introduction of the Green Ranger, the loss of the Green Ranger, the introduction of the White Ranger, the introduction of Lord Zed. You go through, you go through at least 3 to 4 Zord iterations in those first 3 seasons. You have the regular Dino Zords.
Right.
The Thunder Zords that show up when Lord Zed comes along. The movie, and then the subsequent, like, 3rd season of the TV show, introduces the Ninja Zords.
Okay.
And then even in that 3rd one, at some point, you have these, like, temporary Shogun Zords.
Wow, see, I don't remember half that stuff. Like, the Thunder Zords, I don't remember what was different about those.
The Thunder Zords, so, like, they originally had, like, for instance, Jason, the Red Ranger, had the Tyrannosaurus Rex as a Dino Zord.
Right.
When the Thunder Zords replaced them, he got, like, a red dragon.
Oh, shit, see, I don't even remember that.
As his Zord.
My knowledge must be lacking. I must be missing more. Like, I'm finding gaps now that we're talking about it in my Power Rangers knowledge.
Yeah.
Because I definitely watched the movie. Like, I remember the movie, and I remember the Zords from the movie coming over the television show.
Yeah, and the Zords, when they put out the movie didn't address, like, oh no, they blew up the Thunder Zords, what can we do now? It was just basically like, oh, we're in crisis, and we're going to this other place to find a new source of power, and oh look, we got new Zords, it's the Ninja Zords, there you go. Yeah. They don't really address a transition like the TV show did from the Dino Zords to the Thunder Zords.
Right.
But you go all the way through season 3, which is, I'm pretty sure it's like 150 episodes almost.
Jeez, oh man.
In like 3 seasons. Before you ever get to what, at least how a Power Rangers wiki is, classifying things. You get to this second iteration called the Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. Now this is when Rita, who along the way she tricks, or actually I think she kind of like puts a spell on / poisons Lord Zed into marrying her.
Oh, I remember that.
With like a love potion type magic thing. So they're still around, but Rita's father, Master Vile, shows up.
I don't remember him though.
On Earth, and he turns back time. And this was the weirdest iteration in the world because I do remember this seeming really weird. He shows up and turns back time on Earth, which reverts the Rangers to being like 11-year-olds again. And so Billy, being the, prodigy that he is, creates a machine to reverse their ages, even if it doesn't like move time up. But it only works on him. So the Billy character becomes like an 18-year-old again, while the other kids are left being kids the whole season.
Oh, that would be weird.
And it's strange, and like the whole season is them having to travel through time to find these these pieces of the Zeo crystal, which, ends up, so that's where the Zeo brand comes from afterward, but, as you saw, we'll get to, plays a role in the new iteration of the movie,
right?
Canon that they've created. So they use all these particles of Zeo crystals to bring them all together to set time and space right. And then that's pretty much the end of the season, and then the next one is, as I said, what I remember as being like the first official rebranding on TV. Like on TV, they never said it. They never called it the Alien Rangers. That was not the name of the show.
Yeah.
But once they became Power Rangers Zeo the following year, then it did. And that's kind of where, like a little bit, like halfway through that is where I jumped off.
Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that at all, so I must have bailed before that. It must have been somewhere right after the movie, I think. Because I remember, like I said, I remember that stuff happening in the TV show.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't really remember anything after that. It just all feels like a blur. And we did actually, Josh and I were looking at this on Netflix before we started recording. There are like 15 different versions of Power Rangers on Netflix right now.
If not more.
So if you decide to feel nostalgic and you want to go back and try to watch some of these or watch them for the first time and see what you were missing way back when, they are out there. There's a shit ton of Power Rangers to watch.
There are, and even like the original series and everything. It seems like it's all there, other than the feature films, Power Rangers the movie and Power Rangers Turbo, which save yourself an hour and a half. Do not watch that piece of crap. Other than the films, the TV show's all there.
I'd never seen the Turbo one, but I did see the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, like the first one. And I think a couple years ago, Eric and I, it was on Netflix at the time, and Eric and I decided to watch it one Saturday night when we had nothing going on, and yeah, it does not hold up. It's pretty bad.
It's really choppy. Like you see the skeleton of a story there, but the other half of it is just really ridiculous, and the production value in a lot of places is really lame. Although it does open, well, somewhat open, almost open. One of the first scenes is them, this is also, if you remember, it opens with the teenagers skydiving for charity.
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, what insurance company is going to allow something where minors are skydiving when they're not doing it, like, in tandem or with adults or anything? Hey, just fly. Because I remember Bulk and Skull are up in the plane with them.
Right.
So there's like the 6 of them. So there's like 8 teenagers that these adult pilots just take up, 15, 20,000 feet in the air. They're like, all right, go ahead, kids.
Yeah, that movie is so rooted in the 90s. Like, that was the extreme sports era.
Yeah, X Games, yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, right after that, there's a whole, 5-minute long sequence of them rollerblading down the road.
Oh, I forgot about that.
Because so bad.
Because while they're skydiving, they used the Chili Peppers cover of Higher Ground, Stevie Wonder.
Yeah.
Stevie Wonder song while they're skydiving. Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah, and then Tommy has to come down with that surfboard thing, the snowboard.
Of course, because
he can't skydive like a normal person.
No, there's got to be something to just make us. And the thing was, every little, I don't know about little girls at the time, every little boy who was a Power Rangers fan, everybody already idolized Tommy. He was just the epitome of freaking cool in every way. But they're like, oh no, we need to give him just this extra little element to be different, but still makes no effing sense. But they won't realize it because they're 10.
Yeah. Oh, good times. And as much as we bash it too, I do kind of want to go back and watch it now just to poke at it.
Oh, hell yeah.
See how it goes. All right, so we're going to try to get into probably the movie. So, before we get into it, I'm going to throw out the spoiler warning just because I think it's easier for us to talk about just as, freely as we need to, because I don't know how quickly we'll want to get into spoilers, so this just makes it easier. So if you haven't seen the movie yet and don't want to be spoiled, just pause this now. You can come back to us after you've seen the movie. We'll be here waiting for you. So this is your final warning. Spoilers for Power Rangers to follow.
Wee-oo, wee-oo, spoiler! Wee-oo, wee-oo, spoiler! Something like that.
All right, so we are into the spoiler territory. We're going to talk about whatever the hell we want to talk about for Power Rangers. I actually realized I was going to mention this sort of before we got into the spoiler warning, but I'll bring it up now just because it could segue us into this movie fairly well. Bringing it back to when Josh and I first did the first episode for the show, we talked about that Power Rangers short film. I actually put it on Facebook a couple days ago just to sort of refresh and sort of rewatch it just for my own, trying to remember what it looked like. Because even watching this movie, Josh had seen it before me, and he mentioned something about the opening of the movie really pulling him in, and that was sort of what grabbed him and set the stage. And then after I watched it, the first thought that came to my head was that it looks and feels like the Power Rangers short film. This is the same short film that Saban really wanted to get off the internet.
Yeah. Because
it was screwing with the Power Rangers brand, according to him. And I think he even did get it pulled for a couple days, and then it ended up coming back. They, settled or decided they were going to allow it if it was strictly labeled as not being connected to the Power Rangers universe and all that stuff. So it was able to be broadcast on YouTube again. But yeah, even after watching it again recently, I feel even more solid that that's sort of where they're pulling that tone from, is that short film.
Yeah, and it was funny because I made that comment about my review of the movie at first without even making that connection. Like, I knew tonally and, like, for cinematography and everything, I really, like I said, the opening of that movie really, it just hooks you from the beginning with how, like, grounded and, realistic it feels. But it wasn't until you had pointed that out that I'm like, oh yeah, that might be it. Cause I'm kind of remembering why I liked the fan film so much, that I was happy to see it, kind of legitimized.
Yeah, because that fan film, like, it feels like they're in a war, and this one, the movie opens it feels like it's just, worldwide destruction and shit's hitting the fan, and this is like real stakes almost.
Yeah, definitely. It really grasps you right away when, like, you just see a Red Ranger and his armor is just absolutely torn to hell.
Yeah.
He looks he's on, I mean, and he is, like, he's on his, last wind. And, like, the worst moments that you see, Iron Man in some of the Avengers films, some of the state that his suits get in and whatnot, like, that's what these Rangers look like. And just right from, they're like crawling on the ground, they're going through the mud, the sky's overcast, and it's very black, and it's a prehistoric time on Earth where this scene, this last stand scene is taking place, and just the mood of it all, just, I mean, it not in the same way obviously, but it kind of reminded me like Logan, like the opening to that movie. Most of its purpose, really, it doesn't really have a purpose per se. It's to let you know what the rest of the movie's going to be like.
Oh yeah, it's setting the stage.
Absolutely, 100%. The curtain comes up. What are you going to see first to get a sense of what to expect for the rest? That's how both of these movies open, and this one did it excellently.
Yeah. Do we want to start with the opening and just go from there, or do you want to do just like overall impressions and then we'll sort of spin off from there?
Sure. Yeah, you go first.
Are we doing overall impressions?
Yeah.
Yeah, like we're talking, I think that the beginning of the film definitely set the stage. I think it did its job. It was a good departure from what we... if you go back and watch the show or the old movies, they have such a cheesy, campy feel to them, and this did not have that, which means I think it accomplished what they wanted to do. They wanted... I mean, there were parts of it that felt a little bit campy and silly just because it's Power Rangers and it's still geared towards kids, but they took a definitely more realistic approach to it, which I think worked in spades.
Mm-hmm.
I liked the whole kind of like Breakfast Club feel to it. I thought that worked really well. I do think I like the first half of the movie better than the second half.
Okay.
Some of the action, I think, kind of fell flat to me.
Okay.
But I liked all the character stuff, like all the setup and them getting to know each other. All that stuff I thought was great. The cast I thought was fantastic.
Yeah.
All the no-name, like, new actors they got for the Rangers themselves. Like, I didn't know any of them going into this film, but I thought they all did great.
Yeah, I agree. There was only one, from the beginning when I first saw the posters and whatnot, I thought, Kimberly looks so familiar to me, but I didn't know if she just had, like, one of those faces. And it finally clicked after I saw it and I went and looked it up. She was on that show Terra Nova from a couple of years ago. It only ran like one season. Like, actually, I think it was only like half a season.
Yeah.
About like people on Earth figure out how to go back in time and basically try to start civilization over in the time of the dinosaurs.
Yeah.
That's where she came from. So like I finally, and I think I've talked about it on prior episodes, like that's what I've been doing. Like I'm still not done with that show. I still have like 3 episodes left because I kind of lost interest, but like I'm gonna finish it eventually. I'm working on it, but yeah, I finally like rang my brain like, oh god damn, like I've been looking at her face, for 45 minutes once a week.
Yeah, see, that's a little bit more fresh for you because I remember watching that show when it was on, but I don't remember her at all in that movie or in the TV show.
No, she was the daughter of the main cop family.
Wasn't Stephen Lang in that show? Is that what I'm thinking?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes. So yeah, and that was 2011. So yeah, I can definitely see,
Okay. Yeah.
6 years ago, not making that connection there. But yeah, but you're right. Other than that, there's not, and that was the great thing, that even with Elizabeth Banks, there was never a time watching it that I was even watching her portrayal of Rita thinking, oh, this is just Elizabeth Banks. I can't see anything but Elizabeth Banks. She did a great job giving you a villain, but all those other characters, it probably helped that you didn't really recognize them from anything else, but they all did a good job in conveying original people to you.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe I sort of want to get into Rita, because I don't know, did you like Elizabeth Banks' performance with Rita? She's the only one I don't know if I'm kind of on the fence with that.
I wish,
because to me, she almost seems like she's in a different movie.
A little bit. Okay, I see what you mean.
Like, she's playing TV show Rita Repulsa when everybody else is playing real grounded teenagers.
True, though remember, she, the way that they wrote this, she was, removed from existence, civilization, for 65 million years. So,
yeah, so I could get that. I can understand story reasons why she's a little bit off.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I guess for me, I don't know. I think she gave it her all. I just don't know if it was what I expected, and I don't know how I feel about it. I'm really confused.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. I think it might have been some of the script choices. Like, there were...
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
And not to say they were bad, necessarily. I just think maybe there were different things they could have done with her character to... I don't want to say give her more to do, but since the screen time was so devoted in really good ways, don't get me wrong, in really good ways to the character development of the team.
That's true, yeah.
There might have been something sacrificed or lost in fine-tuning her.
Yeah, I guess, yeah, if we would have had more screen time devoted to her, maybe they could have fleshed her out a little bit more. Maybe it could have helped make her a little bit more interesting instead of just like mustache twirling villain.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. And I'm actually really interested in a lot of the breadcrumbs they left. Like, I mean, obviously the biggest thing right from the get-go was, well, that's kind of getting into specific details and plot points and whatnot, so I'll try to keep mine general again. I'll say this is definitely going to end up on my short list for most surprising for the year.
Okay.
I was actually really expecting them to phone this movie in.
Yeah.
I really did. I figured it would be a marketing ploy. It would be a way to just put out something that everyone knows and have a strong opening 2 weeks to get those nostalgia dollars. But and that would be it. But I can't say that at all. I don't think I can. They came up with something very original. They didn't, even though they kept a lot of the same canon, it didn't seem like they were afraid to change anything they wanted.
Yeah, and sort of jumping off from when we talked about the short film that came out 2 years ago, it probably took about 2 years for them to go through production for this movie. Mm-hmm. I don't remember if the reboot was announced before or after the short film. I want to say
like it was around the same time. Like, I feel like rumor. I mean, you figure like with script writing and pre-production, it was already begun by at least at the time the fan film was, put online. But I think it pretty much was sort of just recently confirmed that production will be beginning on a Power Rangers reboot movie.
Right. Okay. Yeah, because you have to wonder if that short film hits the internet goes crazy for it, and everyone's like, oh my god, this would be a great take on Power Rangers. Mm-hmm. And then immediately afterwards, they're like, oh, here comes a Power Rangers reboot movie. And you're like, oh, I see what you did there. Capitalizing on somebody else's, push for this franchise just to make more money off of it. But yeah, you're right. If they announced it beforehand, then they already sort of had their plan for it. And maybe that short film influenced some things. Maybe they tweaked some of their ideas for the script or how the movie would play out. All for the better, I think, but...
Yeah, I mean, maybe if they were smart, they would have at least looked at message boards. They would have looked at YouTube comments, to see if there was anything that, and let's be honest, there's two demographics for this movie. Brand new kids and people our age. That's
Right.
it.
Yeah.
There's not going to be many 60-year-olds who have, maybe they're retired and they're thinking of going to the movies this afternoon and, oh, we've seen previews for that Power Ranger movie. Like, it's not going to be a casual choice of a moviegoer.
Right.
So if they were smart, they might have looked at a lot of the feedback that people have left, and you're right, maybe it did influence some of their artistic choices, script writing, some of the tonal aspects of the movie, the fact that they decided to take it, very earnestly in like a Batman Begins type of way.
Yeah.
It was very practical in nature. Like, you obviously have to take certain leaps of faith in terms of suspension of disbelief, but they tried to ground it as much as they could, assuming that these things could really happen.
Right. Sort of spinning off from Rita, should we go down like the list of characters and just sort of talk about everybody and see what we
Sure.
thought? All right, so we'll just start with the Rangers. What do we think of the Red Ranger? We'll start with the leader, Jason the Red Ranger. I gotta look up names because I don't know.
I got him on the page.
Montgomery?
Dacre, yeah, that's
Dacre.
Something like that. That's a weird first name. Who, incidentally, is going to be in the second season of Stranger Things.
Oh, I didn't know that. Shit.
Yep. Ironically, as a character named Billy.
It all comes back around.
Yeah, at least it wasn't Jason. Or
true.
Tommy. I'd say I was pleased with his acting. I felt that there needed to be a little bit of a strengthening up for me to believe in this 17 or 18-year-old as, this formidable leader. I see him as a good person and somebody who wants to, help the team achieve, but I don't know about the rest, but I was pleased otherwise.
Yeah, I think for stepping in the leader role, the main guy that you follow everybody, but he's got more of the focus, I feel like. Like, maybe him and Billy, I think, were the two that got the most focus. Mainly because, you open the movie with him.
True.
So, yeah, I think he did a pretty good job carrying it and doing what he needed to do.
Yeah, agreed. And it was hard to tell where they were starting with him, because they, definitely introduce him as, I don't want to say like Mr. Class Clown, but, big man on campus, the one who does everything, like, oh, this is going to be the senior prank to end all senior pranks. It's going to be it's going to be legendary. But I don't know, sometimes what they forget with that kind of like archetypal character is, if you are 18 and you think you're going to do something at high school that people will still be talking about when you're 40, like, you're just setting yourself up for a really crappy life.
Oh, yeah.
So, like, they moved away from that archetype pretty quickly. I just didn't know where they were going initially.
I will say, too, that joke with the bull, or the cow, whatever they were moving, like, to set up the movie with that joke, like, that, I think, got the biggest laugh out of the theater.
Yeah, because I was not expecting them to go that mature
yeah.
with it. And not to say I've seen it before, but you kind of have. Like, I saw that joke in City Slickers 2,
right.
25 years ago.
Yeah, it's an old joke, but you can still play it a little bit differently each time.
Yeah, that's true. And yeah, you're right, because with some of the wording, his friend was like, oh, I was wondering, because it was really big and I had to use two hands.
And he even started doing the motion. Like, I was like, oh, God. But yeah, it worked. I like that. I'm just going to go down to IMDb. Naomi Scott for Kimberly is next.
Yes,
what do we think of her?
She's the one I mentioned was on Terra Nova. I liked her. I think I've always been drawn to the. I've given my personality, the music that I like, the way I prefer to dress, those very basic aesthetic things, I've always been drawn to the sort of rebel girl, so to speak.
Okay.
So, and for people who are like in transition, trying to find themselves and, going through a questioning of things, and that's all wrapped up in being a teenager.
Right.
I really gravitated towards that, 'cause it probably reminded me a lot of my teenage years. I guess I felt like I went through a lot of that myself.
Yeah.
And so I gravitated towards that, but I felt she was one of the more natural acting of the team at times. And I'll give it up we'll get to him in a minute, but when we get to the actor who played Billy, I mean, hands down, he freaking won it for me.
Yeah.
But definitely, especially compared to Trini and Zach, she felt, and even Jason at times, her acting felt the most natural, the most fluid.
I mean, I feel like they gave her a little bit more to do, too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody, I guess, has their arc, but I guess hers is a little bit more prominent than, say, like Zach or Trini's.
Very true.
So I think that makes her stand out a little bit more, makes her a little bit more memorable. And yeah, I think she did a great job with everything she had to work with there.
Mm-hmm.
And like you mentioned, CJ Seiler, I guess is how you, or RJ, sorry, I'm messing letters up. RJ Seiler, who played Billy. Yeah, he was the heart and soul of that movie.
Yeah. And I mean, it can't be ignored that, right up front, the easy word to use is diversity in this movie. Not only did they have genders and races, but they also went for, learning, capabilities and sexual orientation. And I'm happy that they did it, but it wasn't necessary. It's okay that they did. I guess they did it in a way that to me did not seem on the nose. It did not seem ham-handed. It did not seem like this is Rangers of the current generation, and the current generation accepts gay people and knows that some people are autistic. It just happened to be the 5 people who in this universe met each other for this purpose.
Yeah, there's ways to write around that stuff where it's not beating you over the head with it. And
yeah,
they talk about it, but it's a non-issue when people are talking about it, which doesn't bring that much more focus on it to point it out to be like, that's odd, that's weird, that's not normal.
It's incidental, but it's not imperative.
Right.
It's just there. They did a good job at writing, and the actors did a good job at portraying that aspect of themselves, just like any other aspect. Like Billy's dad passed away a few years ago. Billy is also it has Asperger's.
Yeah.
Like that's it. Like it's just 2 qualities about him, and it doesn't go any further. But you're right. You hit it, nail on the head, heart and soul. You loved that character the whole time.
Yeah, because I was like, since we're in the spoilers, I was really surprised how emotional I got when you thought he died.
Oh yeah, that whole time, when they carry him back.
Oh yeah.
To the command center, like from the shipyard down wherever the hell they had to carry him through the mountains to get back to, the one thing I will say as a connection to that, are they ever going to introduce the idea of the teleportation system? Because it seems like that would have come in handy, because it seemed like they were walking for miles every time.
I guess it depends where, because like in the show, like Zordon's, like the Power Rangers lair was like on top of a mountain somewhere, and they had that like tube where they went in the tube. The ship is underground, so unless they do some sort of Star Trek type transportation, it's not like they can shoot them down a tube through the ground.
No, but you figure in this Death March scene, wherever they are along the shoreline in the shipyard, they have to pick his body up. The 4 of them have to carry him walking from there, probably several miles, at least, to the mountains, to the particular cliff where they continuously jump off, down the crevasse, into the pool. Then they gotta bring him down the pool, out of the bottom of it, into the cavern, then get themselves collected, pick him back up.
Yeah.
And, cause like you know, when Jason, I mean, it kind of looked like maybe Jason and Kimberly shared, kind of cushioning him as they leapt off the cliff into the pool.
Oh, I sort of took that as they needed to weight him to get him through the water.
Well, that too. But, so if it's just like one or two of them doing it, you know, as they showed earlier, like once you come out of the bottom of the pool, you just fall.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So one or two of them have him, then they fall out of the water, 15 feet into the bottom of the cavern. Then they have to collect themselves, pick his body back up to then march into the command center. It just really would have seemed like if any other shortcut could have been found, that would have been helpful.
I guess it kind of defeats the purpose of having the song montage of them carrying him like Christ to the, to the cliff where they drop him off.
Yeah. Yeah, but no, I did the same thing that time where they're walking him into the command center, especially, and just as they're putting him down, I definitely felt the feels.
It was even that's one of the points where I think I can point to the actors and say they did a great job, because even just their reactions of like carrying his body and them breaking up as they're bringing him there, like that was what got me. Yeah,
good point.
All right, next on the list we have Ludi Lin, who played Zach. Who, I mean, I think he did a good job, but out of the 5, I think he was the most forgettable to me.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's just because they didn't give him too much to do or what, but yeah, I think he was the least memorable to me out of the 5.
Yeah, that's a good point, because you even got a bit more of Trini in other scenes, and eventually you get some kind of human insight into Zach with his mother and where he lives.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, one point I was going to make eventually is it just, like you get a very good foundation for Jason, Kimberly, and Billy.
Yeah.
Pretty much from the beginning, and then just coincidentally, Zach, who is on top of an abandoned caboose car from 1892 that's sitting in this rock quarry still, is there, and Trini apparently hangs out at the quarry also. Like, they seem more coincidental.
Yeah. And
Zach, like, they try to establish at the beginning, like, oh, he's a little bit of a recluse. He's the, as you said earlier, like, he's the extreme sports guy on the team. He's the crazy one, as he says several times.
Yeah.
But then, there wasn't a fully fleshed out character there. You got different sides of it, but it didn't gel all the way into one. So yeah, you're right. You're like left with not really having a firm impression of who he is and what, like, his role on the team and all that.
I mean, I'm not saying he didn't have memorable scenes, because there are things that stand out to me that he was part of or that he did.
Okay.
But yeah, I think, and it could just be just because he was introduced to the movie late. Like you said, we get Jason, Kimberly, and Billy pretty much up front because they're all in detention.
Yeah.
Zach barely even goes to school, so he's not into that.
Mm-hmm.
So we don't get him until, 20 minutes maybe into the movie? 15, 20 minutes?
Yeah, it's a while.
I mean, Trini gets that, she's introduced at the same time too, but I guess she has maybe a little bit more to do that stands her out, I think, to me. Because she gets the whole scene with, like Rita comes to her bedroom.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what? As I was saying that, I think it would, if that scene didn't exist, I feel that she would have suffered just being as unmemorable, or the level of unmemorable, as Zach.
Right. Yeah, I agree. Because that showed her having at least a little bit of, like, a backbone and having some balls to stand up to Rita.
Yeah.
Because Rita is basically picking on her, saying, you are the weakest one out of the 5.
Yeah. Yeah. Because why else would she do that?
So yeah, that Trini, I'm gonna give her props, but Becky G is the actress that plays Trini. Yeah,
and I wasn't familiar with her, and I maybe this is just a bias, but the moment that I saw someone listed with acting credits that is just using her last initial, I'm like, okay, I what the frick is this? But I guess she's primarily a performer. She's a singer.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, she has a couple of small, like, acting roles, but, like, most of her credits are soundtrack. And I'd still, given that, I'd say she did pretty well, but, I don't know. Yeah, it just seems like, you know, again, like, where do they go from here?
Yeah.
You know, with it, what happens to Trini? What happens to Zach? Why am I going to care about them going forward?
I mean, they almost seem to set up a little bit of a romance between them, I think, early
True.
on.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad that because in the trailers they show Kimberly and Jason having a kiss, and they cut that from the movie, which I'm actually glad they did.
Very glad. Exactly, right? It totally would have detracted from everything.
Yeah. So I think they were sort of setting up, at least to me, it seemed like they were setting up Zach and Trini for possibly something, and then they have the whole scene around the campfire, which I think is probably one of my favorite scenes in the movie.
Definitely.
And you get Trini sort of questioning her sexual orientation, so it sort of waylays that whole romance thing too, which is also a good character beat, I think, for her. Like you said, It's something else that they're not, they don't have to beat you over the head with it, but I think it fleshes out her character well enough that it works.
It does, and I mean, if for the one thing for them to say, in modern times, what are current teenagers potentially dealing with? Well, even as it becomes obviously legally accepted, the social acceptance is definitely moving that way in masses. So, but could you still have a teenager who is homosexual or bisexual, perhaps, with, living in a family that is either perhaps, too conservative up for it, or just has a particular hardship with that aspect of their child? Absolutely. So, is that very real for the modern times? And entirely. So it seemed to fit as to why someone might feel like an outcast, or, feel like they don't fit in anywhere.
Yeah, it definitely lends to her character well. Who else we got? We talked about Elizabeth Banks, Bryan Cranston, Zordon.
So I'd say from the retconning that they did with this, I like pretty much every new choice they made. The idea that, the biggest thing that I absolutely loved was that they gave Rita the fallen angel storyline. The fact that she used to be the Green Ranger was freaking brilliant.
Yeah.
Just absolutely brilliant. 'Cause in the original, well, at least in the Americanized version of the original show, Rita basically creates the Green Ranger power out of, like, dark magic. So the power, so to speak, that is harnessed from elsewhere, that creates the power coins and gives the Rangers their abilities and all that stuff, that comes from a much different place than the Green Ranger is created from in the show. And in this, iteration, it's it feels like, okay, well, ever since this thing began, it's always been a team of 6. These 6 power forces have always existed, and she's just the, the morning star of the group. She's the one that fell from grace. So I absolutely loved that. In that same way, I loved the idea that Zordon used to be a Ranger.
But that's new canon, right? They never really established that in the TV show, that he used to be a Ranger?
Not at all. Just, I always got the impression that he was some kind of, spiritual leader or yeoman or fighter of the good fight, but he was never, he was an overseer of the power and whatnot, but he was never a Ranger.
Right. Okay.
That was what
I got
that
too.
idea. Loved that idea right off the bat.
Yeah, because, when that opens and then he's collecting the coins and you're seeing people outside their suits, like they're losing their power and stuff. And your first one, you see the Yellow Ranger, he takes the coin and it's an alien. You're like, whoa, what the fuck? Like, that's not what I expected.
Not at all.
And then when he finally loses the Red Ranger and you're looking at the face, I'm like, is that Cranston?
Yeah, I didn't expect that. Because
he's in makeup, so you can't tell right away. But yeah, that was a really, really cool addition.
Yeah, it was those writing choices, those creative choices that I think really set this apart for me as a whole, because all the fun stuff that they did, like I said, the reason I thought initially it could have just been like a cash grab or could have really fell flat, if all they were going to do was make a Power Ranger movie utilizing today's special effects, it would have sucked.
Yeah.
It would have just, and I'm not even talking about like the campy nature, but saying earlier like that they didn't phone the movie in, that's what I mean.
Yeah.
Like the people who were a part of the creative process were interested in creating. They were interested in art. They were interested in storytelling and just figuring out different ways to do things. And would this be a good idea? Do we like this? Yes, no, sure, we'll try it out. They weren't afraid to make these diversions.
Yeah. What did you think of the effect of him? Like, Zordon's head's not in the tube. He's part of the ship.
Mm-hmm. That was actually a specific note that I made, which was, I like the idea, and I like the visual that they use, how he can kind of like move around that room along the wall there.
Yeah.
The only thing about it though is, I mean, go back to Bryan Cranston's earliest acting roles you can find that are easy to find, like obviously like Malcolm in the Middle, and the one or two times he was on Seinfeld as the dentist.
Oh yeah.
Cranston is a very physical actor. So the way that they chose to visually show him coming through that wall, you lost a lot of the versatility of how expressive his face can be. He can do a lot with facial features. And so they limited themselves in that way, but he's also such a good voice actor that you just basically had that shape looking at you, but you felt everything he was saying.
Yeah. Well, even like his voice is pretty iconic, I think, at this point too. So that it's a good voice to put as Zordon.
Yeah. And that also add in, what we just said about him. It ended up that, holy crap, he's a former Ranger himself. That just kind of added a different dimension. Like when we heard some of the casting news, a year ago, like, holy crap, Bryan Cranston as Zordon in a Power Rangers movie? That's going to be cool. But I think you're right. We all had that image of Bryan Cranston's floating head in the tube.
Right, yeah.
And this was a really cool way to go about it.
The last one, part of, I guess, the main cast, we could say, would be Bill Hader as Alpha 5.
I gotta say, they might not have necessarily needed Bill Hader for that role with what we ended up with, but I feel like he had a lot of fun with it. There were just a lot of idiosyncrasies about Alpha, and a lot of one-liners, like throwaway comments that you almost missed.
Yeah.
That were really spot on. I enjoyed their take on it.
Even just like from what I remember of Alpha from, way back the original Mighty Morphin, like Bill Hader's voice, I feel like fits that version of Alpha very, very well.
Yes. And every now and then, I think like at least twice I caught that you did get ayayays.
Yeah.
In there, which I appreciated.
I wasn't real crazy about the design for Alpha 5. It still didn't really hit. He almost looked really fat and almost pregnant in some shots. Like they gave him a gut for some reason. He's a robot.
Yeah, I'd say we don't have there's nothing about him that yet looks like he gels with the rest of his surroundings.
Yeah.
Like it feels like Alpha 5 from the TV show did. The shapes, the colors, the simplicity of the design, if you will. Like this one, I enjoyed it a lot, but you're right. It just didn't look like it gelled with everything else around him.
Like, I don't know if I just expected like the same type of design from the TV show, but I don't know. I wanted them to pull some sort of like man in a suit C-3PO type of, almost practical effect, I think, for Alpha 5. I think the CG little midget size Alpha 5 just kind of threw me. And his like saucer type of head with the like the light bulb eyeballs and stuff like that. I don't know. It just didn't work for me.
Okay.
Where else want to go? Oh, let's talk about the director, because wasn't real familiar with the director. It's another guy, I guess, that must have came from like indie stuff or doesn't have a lot under his belt, and they just gave him blockbuster film and said, make this. But I guess the guy's name is Dean Israelite. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Yep.
So he did a couple short films and 2015's Project Almanac, which I haven't seen, so I don't really know how to, I can't compare this to that movie or anything like that. But
right.
What did you think of his directing style, I guess?
Not really being sure how much of the decisions were his as director. I mean, I would say that I can't find anything that I terribly hated. If he was involved like with the cinematographer and the lighting director and the script writers, everyone together did a really great job. Right. It's hard with like basically a first time director. I know that's not really fair, but having zero impression of him. I mean, if he had a lot to do with the end product, I'm very happy with it.
Yeah. There were a few, I think, some people try to experiment, do different things. There was a couple shots that I felt really disoriented with, and one specifically it's cool because it feels like a continuous shot, is when Jason gets in his truck and starts driving away from the cops, and the camera just keeps spinning.
Yeah.
It goes 360 degrees like 2 or 3 times, and then it's like upside down when he crashes the truck.
Right.
That whole thing, like, maybe it's just because I don't like spinny things, but I was like, nope, stop spinning. This is enough for me. And I think there was a few, not necessarily action sequences or parts, but, the frickin' shaky cam crap. Every time somebody does it for whatever reason, it stands out to me. And I know I can't specifically think of any points, but I know there were some points where the camera's shaking for no reason, or maybe there is a reason, I just don't care for it. But the shaky cam stuff always sticks out to me.
Yeah, I think they did a good enough job in this to really minimize that, but specifically I could think of like when they're constantly in the pit doing training.
Right, yeah.
And for me, maybe it wasn't as much shaky cam as I would typically think of it, but for me, it was like the action was too quick, the cuts were too sharp, and I barely got to really relish and enjoy the picture I was seeing before it cut to the to another angle across the room looking at somebody else.
There was,
I don't know.
Even like, and maybe that's an editing thing, but I think like, and I'm not saying necessarily like Jason Bourne shaky cam, but maybe there's just shots of something and the camera is shaking. It could be people talking, but every time the camera shakes, it is noticeable to me. But the quick cut stuff that you're talking about, usually shaky cam and quick cuts go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's just a way for editors to like, something they want to do that's fast and intense, so they just cut it real quickly, where you don't even have a chance to grasp what you're seeing before it cuts to something else. The one that stands out to me that I like the scene, I really wanted to understand how even like the choreography and stuff works, is when Trini and Kimberly are fighting over a piece of like dessert.
Yeah.
Like that seemed like a really cool choreographed hand-to-hand little fun bit, and it cuts so quickly, I can't tell whose hand is where, who's trying to do what.
That's true. They kept like changing orientations.
Right, you're behind Kimberly, you're behind Trini,
you're
from
looking
the side.
down.
You're
right.
So I don't know if they just like couldn't get that in one take or in long enough takes to use that, so they just cut it real quick to pieces that worked and hopefully edited to something that sort of makes sense.
That's true. Though it just occurred to me, if this is if this is the extent of the laundry list that we have to complain about this director, that's probably pretty good news for him.
Yeah, I think he did a good job. Just
definitely
little things, like I said, there's the spinny shot for me didn't do it, but that's one instance.
Yeah. And
then like you said, the few and far between shaky cam stuff, because there's not a lot. It's definitely minimal compared to other movies where I have shaky cam complaints.
Yeah.
But just for me noticing it's there. It was a bullet point I wanted to bring up.
Sure.
And I don't know how much he had, I guess, say in, or because it might fall in the choreographies, but the fight scenes for me, I felt kind of lackluster. Like they build towards them in the suits fighting stuff, and you get there and it doesn't last very long.
No, I was disappointed with the altercation, and I mean, I guess we'll put this out now. I was really disappointed in the idea, like this incarnation of the putties as just like rock creatures that,
Okay.
like, I don't know, it just seemed like it doesn't matter where you hit them once and they fall apart. So they're not really formidable. And yeah, you're right. Like they had this whole build up with the characters and it was great. You're right. Like the first, like 75% of the movie, then they get those suits and then they start fighting. You get about 60 seconds maybe of putty fighting. And then it's like, let's get the Zords because we already got Goldar and we got to go after him.
Right. And not to mention, like, the first time they put on the suits and fight something is, like, in that water section going down to the cave, which was really awkward.
I made a note of that, too. I thought that was the strangest decision. Like, why put them in that environment, especially? Like, they've been fighting these things in their training area for so long, and then... on, say land, so to speak, in a cavern.
Right.
And then the first time they're going to be like suspended with them trying to fight them in some kind of pool. That was strange.
Yeah, because even, like, maybe this is just maybe some story complaints, because I have a couple other plot holes that maybe we'll get to later. But the whole, like, we have to learn to fight in 11 days, and I don't even think they've successfully learned how to fight, and yet they get the suits and they're fighting everybody. Like, nothing about their training leads me to believe they're right where they should be when they're finally able to morph, that they can handle their own.
Okay.
And yet, it's the same sort of thing with the Zords. Is like, as soon as they get the Zords, the only person that's given it a test drive is Zack. Every other one of the four Rangers never sat in them at all, and yet they're driving them and controlling them like they know what the hell they're doing.
Yeah, and that was always a complaint, I think, of even the original show, is that they never, upon seeing it the second time today, I think there was I want to say a throwaway line per se, but like a one-liner where Alpha first shows them the Zords.
Yeah.
And then says, like, once you learn to morph, effectively, like, you'll kind of become one with the Zord.
See, okay, I missed that then.
Something to that, like more of like a avatar kind of thing,
Okay.
hook your hair up to the creature.
Well, they do get, like, something jumps out at them and grabs them in the back and pulls them in.
Right.
So maybe it is more just like telekinetic.
Or something that allows it to be more cerebral, more intuitive.
Or telepathic. What am I saying? Telekinetic is when you move stuff with your mind.
Right. Oh yeah. Yeah. But yeah, something along those lines. And I can buy that's the least of my complaints. And in a world where you have to, again, suspend disbelief for a lot of things, I can be all right with that.
Right, that would make sense. I feel like if they were going for the campy, silly feel, but if you're making it this grounded and realistic, I feel like these explanations need to be there.
That's a good point.
Like, if you're setting up this tone in this type of universe, you can't expect people to just forget the stuff that you're setting up.
That is a good point.
So, and most of it, because I have some plot holes and stuff that I'll bring up, and most of them are story related. Like, I just felt like, to me, the solution would have been, instead of saying Rita's going to destroy the Earth in 11 days, make it 11 weeks or 11 months or something, and just cut the montage. Like, they're going to have a fight training montage.
Right.
If you give them more time to build that training up, you can show more of a progression in a montage, and I will buy that by the time you get to the end, and they know what the hell they're doing.
That's true. And you know what? That maybe that would have given them the ability to, like, along the way, have one or two smaller scale encounters.
Yeah.
Which test their skills and give them a litmus test as to where they are. But it also gives you, a chance to, like I said, once you finally get them in the suits fighting the putties, it's like they're demolishing them all over the place. And even though they say, like, oh, these things just keep coming, that which is true, but, like, you're going through them like paper. So, almost like, does it matter? But, like, yeah, if you had, a challenge here or there as it built towards the big fight,
right.
Maybe that would have also helped to satisfy some of, what you saw as some of the shortcomings.
Yeah, it's just, in my mind, it's just a simple writing, like an edit to one of the scripts or something. But I guess they just want to keep up some of that pacing that this needs to happen now, So you don't feel like you're slowing down, I guess, in the movie. So I can understand why they did it. To me, it stood out, and I didn't really care for it.
Okay, fair enough.
Of course, I have to ask: did you walk out of this movie really, really craving some Krispy Kreme?
No. Because
that is something they pound over your head is Krispy Kreme donuts.
That is the one thing that I thought was ridiculously shameless. Yeah, just way too much. Like, to the point where it's obvious product placement, but it's like they literally, well, I guess I can't say literally because I don't have a literal count. They say Krispy Kreme around 10 to 12 times within a very short period of time.
Yeah.
Like within a couple exchanges of lines of dialogue. Like it's back and forth, and Krispy Kreme is mentioned like 5 times in like 4 sentences.
Not to mention you get the gratuitous shot of Elizabeth Banks sitting down to eat a donut in the middle of a battle.
Which I actually enjoyed the silliness of, especially while Survivor was playing. Which I maybe use that as a jumping off point here, which I thought the music that they used, especially a lot of the stuff that I recognize, I thought it was really well done.
See, I didn't care for the music.
No?
I think they overused pop songs, especially in the final battle. It seemed
Okay.
like it felt... The only movie recently I feel like that used a bunch of pop songs was Suicide Squad. It felt Suicide Squad-y to me. Where it seemed
Maybe
like almost every character they jumped to show a different angle coming at the battle, they were almost playing a different pop song.
See, maybe it helped with me that most top 40 music from the last 10 years, I don't know. So there's a lot that I may not have recognized. It might have just otherwise sounded like a soundtrack song or something.
Right, okay.
But there was the one shot when, right after detention, when Jason decides he's going to go over to Billy's house and Billy's going to dismantle his house arrest bracelet.
Yeah.
I thought it was the White Stripes, but that's because it's still Jack White, but they use a Rock on Tours song.
Okay.
Called, I had to look it up because I didn't know it, but it's called Salute Your Solution from their second album. Then there's this I thought was odd. They used the Social Distortion cover of Ring of Fire in 2 different places.
See, I guess I missed the stuff
twice.
earlier. Like, I remember hearing songs, but I guess maybe just because I didn't recognize what they were, that I didn't like pay that much attention.
Yeah, I can't remember the first time off the top of my head. The second time is when they arrive at the boatyard and that like fisherman guy is tied to the chair, but they think it might be Rita waiting for them.
Right.
As they're approaching that fight, that's the second time they play it, and it was just odd, like, because the scenes in which it's playing don't really seem to be connected. Like there was a common theme or character or something happening where you would use the same piece of music for something. But how often do you get Social Distortion in a movie? So I was happy with it. I will say the one thing I was really pleased by was the version of Stand By Me they used.
Yes.
During that funeral, talk about that funeral march. That was outstanding. Yeah,
if there's one song I'd pick out that I'm like, I need that one, it's got to be that one.
Well, for yourself and any of the listeners, Brian, that is obviously the original is by Ben E. King, but that was a cover by a band called the Bootstraps.
Ooh, all right, I will definitely have to iTunes that one.
Yeah, that was cool. The only letdown is that odd version of Power that they used in the credits. Yeah, that's Kanye West.
Yeah, well, they used that in the trailers too.
Oh, did they say that? I avoided most of the trailers, so I didn't hear it before.
Oh, yeah, it was like the last 2 or 3 trailers. They definitely throw that everywhere.
I didn't care for it.
Because that song pops up in the third act too when they're fighting. Because I definitely remember that one standing out.
Yeah, like just use the original version, the original Snap version. Everyone loves that 1990 song.
Well, I was disappointed they didn't use like the Mighty Morphing theme song more than they did. You get that couple, I don't know, maybe half a minute or a minute whenever they finally pull the Zords out and they're running.
Yes.
But even like when they finally morph and you get that like heroic slow walk out of the spaceship, they're playing what is the new, I guess, Power Rangers theme song, and it's not the Mighty Morphin Power like that's when I wanted the theme song, was right there.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I for the mood, I could see that, but the fact that it popped up at a moment that I was not expecting it, and that honestly didn't feel like the typical time that you would use it, and it was just used sparingly, I guess so for me it goes along with a couple of the fan service things that they did put into it.
Right.
That again didn't seem like they were on the nose.
Yeah, because that one
like,
definitely...
It was the perfect punch you got at a moment that you never saw coming, and it was here and it was over, and it didn't seem like there was this awkward moment created by it, or like, well, that really seems out of place. There was that there, and yeah, granted, the one time you get Jason, right at the end before they finally morph, say, "Come on, guys, it's morphin' time."
Yeah.
You get that, but I think my absolute favorite actually was, when Rita has, she's building Goldar, and you actually get her say the line, "Make my monster grow." Oh, I died.
Yeah, I got that one too.
I loved that. It's funny because I saw it with Sarah, obviously, and my wife, and we're talking about it so much, and she did not grow up watching these. So, like,
did you have to explain that part to her?
A little bit. I think she might have recognized a couple things, so she might have known that, but, like, there was a lot. I think she enjoyed it as well very much, but, like, there was a lot to the sort of mythology and backstory of, the old series that I told her about, and this was different, and they changed some of the stuff we talked about before, like, well, Rita was never a ranger, and here's how the Green Ranger worked, and then Zordon wasn't a ranger either, and I had to tell her all that. But yeah, just those little moments of homage without it really being like on the nose. I really appreciated. They handled that really well.
Were there any other Easter eggs that stuck out to you? Did you make notes of any of those?
If I think of Easter eggs per se, well, not anything that jumped out at me that I noticed that would have been like an allusion to like the Juice Bar or Bulk and Skull, who I'm sorely missing from this movie. I really hope there's some kind of Bulk and Skull type character in the sequel. But no, I might have passed me by. Why? Did you have a laundry list?
I didn't think of any when I was in there, but just watching reviews and hearing people talk about the movie, there was a few that I heard or read about. Okay. I guess the original actress that plays Trini, like, tragically died. I don't remember when.
2001.
Okay. The girl that plays Trini at one point is wearing a shirt that's got the year 1973 on it, which I guess was the year that actress was born.
Oh, okay. Okay, I can see that.
So that was one.
Cool.
The truck that Jason gets into is a red Ranger.
Ranger. Yeah. Yeah, I read that one.
So I thought that was pretty cheeky. I don't remember. I think those are the only ones I'm thinking of right now.
Okay.
I know there's more, but off the top of my head, that's all I can think of.
Yeah, those fun kind of things are, well, and then obviously the gratuitous cameo of Tommy and Kimberly at the end.
Oh, right, yeah.
Which was great. I don't know about you, but there was like 2 or 3 moments in our theater where you did have those like audible, like audience applause and clapping lines.
Yeah.
One was when the theme song came on with the Zords.
That was a definite fist pump moment, I think.
Yes. And then, yeah, when you saw Jason David Frank and Amy Jo Johnson on screen, everyone in the theater was like, "Oh!"
Which part of me is like just believing that it's actually Tommy and Kimberly, like living happily ever after somewhere. Like they've started a family, they're just living in Angel Grove.
Uh-huh. So like Earth 2 Tommy and Kimberly.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forget where else I wanted. I feel like I was going to go somewhere just then, and then I just completely spaced. One thing I want to bring up, just because I think I caught it the second time, and I just wanted to get your opinion.
Okay.
Are we led to believe?
So you got to see it twice too?
I did go see it twice. Yes.
Oh my god! I get to see it for free, and you've seen it twice in the same amount of time that I have.
Yeah. Well, because I've said this before, movies that especially the ones I put on like my most anticipated or ones I'm really looking forward to, I try to see twice just because to really appreciate it or figure out how I feel. I let the first time just kind of wash over me, and then the second time I'm really trying to pick it apart.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I need to see it twice to really get a good grip on it.
Gotcha.
But yeah, after the second time, I feel like we're led to believe that Zordon and Alpha are responsible for the dinosaur extinction.
Right. Yeah, I picked that up the second time as well. Like, I kind of questioned it the first time. Like, it occurred to me much later. But
because like Alpha definitely says they've been waiting 65 million years.
5 million years.
In the
They're
beginning,
still on Earth.
He's putting the power coins in the ground, and he says, "Alpha, send the meteor to my position."
Yeah.
So if that's the meteor that made the dinosaurs go extinct, that's totally their fault.
I would think for them to specifically now, yeah. How often, when you're having history discussions about the era of dinosaurs, 65 million is literally probably the most common time frame used, other than any other, to generically describe the era of the dinosaurs on planet Earth.
Right.
So I think it would be highly suspect for them to say coincidentally, oh no, I mean that was a meteor, but it was more localized.
Yeah, it wasn't that meteor, it was just the first
that
one.
meteor. Yeah. Although the planet looked, well, I'd say the planet looked pretty wrecked, although that could have just been the small little area where they were in having this war.
Yeah.
Because it also seemed like, well, I don't know, because they said that they came, like, I mean, did you get the impression that they were not beings of Earth?
Correct.
They just happened to, either they followed Rita there because she was after the piece of the crystal that was there, or they went there first to protect it, feeling that is where she was heading. One way or another, that's where they all ended up. Not that they were previous incarnations of life on Earth.
Right, yeah, that's what I got. Their battle took them to Earth.
Right. So, yeah, maybe however long that portion of the battle had been waging, who knows? That could have been the last 5 minutes that they arrive on Earth finally, or it could have been, going on for days, and she finally decimates them, and the whole place is wrecked.
Which I feel like is even funnier, that it takes a frickin' meteor for Zordon to defeat Rita, and all the Power Rangers have to do is bitch slap her out into outer space.
Yeah, okay, so I was going to come to this later, yeah, because like one of the only major huge plot points that I found was exactly that not only, yeah, did she literally basically kill at least 4, if not 5 other Rangers, but you're right, it took a literal act of the galactic body to assist them in dealing with her, but this pretty much newly formed team that hasn't, if you get the impression that like maybe Zordon's team was together for like hundreds of years,
right,
potentially, and yeah, this like ragtag team of teenagers from Angel Grove somehow, obviously they don't end up killing her per se, but they still foil her plans. They stop her from getting the same thing that she killed Zordon's whole team to get. And there's a little bit of an imbalance there.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably good to segue as any. Do you want to go through my list of plot holes? I don't know if you have anything else you want to bring up with the movie in general before I try to poke at it, I guess.
Well, just a couple fun things I found. As we talked about earlier about like the adult jokes, so to speak.
Yeah.
I liked in the command center when either Alpha or Zordon first asks them like, "Have any of you ever morphed?" And Zach replies, "Yes, actually, but only in the shower."
Yeah.
That was good. Because that was like an unnecessary adult joke that landed really well.
Yeah.
Like they didn't need to make that joke, but it was funny. Some of the Breakfast Club stuff that we talked about really quick at the beginning was I felt some of the parallels, like maybe they realized what they were doing, so they just decided to embrace it a little bit. For instance, like when Jason's dad drops him off for that first day of detention, he literally says to him, and I wrote down the quote as I was seeing the movie today, "Now you have to come here every Saturday." for the rest of the year with all of these weirdos and criminals. And the most famous tagline of the Breakfast Club being, but what we found out is that each one of us is a brain, an athlete, a basket case, a princess, and a criminal. Which, in a lot of cases, pretty much fits this team as well.
Yeah, it's pretty on the nose.
And then the other one was the fact that Billy is in detention for his lunchbox blowing up in his locker.
Yeah.
And he's the nerd, the brain of the group. That is why Brian Johnson in the Breakfast Club is in detention for the flare gun that he was potentially going to use for suicide going off in his locker.
Yeah.
I thought some of the humor moments that they put in were really good. Like, they really played up at the beginning how, Jason is like the star of the town. Like when he's biking to Billy's house and just random people on the street are like, is that Jason Scott?
Yeah. Well, even like Billy's mom.
Yes. Yes. She opens the door and oh my god, I love that. Oh my god, Jason Scott! Like she just like met a true celebrity. That was perfect.
I got the whole like Varsity Blues feel from all that.
Oh yeah, good pull. That's perfect. Yeah.
Starring Vanderbeek, who was in the Power Rangers short film.
Oh,
it all comes back around.
Connections. I liked the comment once they got the Zords where he steps on the sports car and then throws it at the putties and he says, "Sorry, Bumblebee."
Because like giant robots fighting in downtown. That's a Transformers dig.
Oh yeah, and again, maybe they knew like there would be parallels made, there would be inevitable comments made. So I really liked that.
Yeah, they're getting in front of the joke.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. There's some other just random things that I had written down, but we can hit your points.
Okay. Again, I guess for me, maybe it's just a point of what I do now, sort of when I watch movies. I feel like I'm doing it more often than I used to, but parts of the story that they set up and don't answer or really address again stick out to me.
Okay, that's fair.
And especially certain, like, we talked about how this movie tries to set this realistic, grounded tone for the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So there's certain things that I feel like in a realistic world should be addressed and just aren't.
Okay.
Like, and it's probably one of the more shocking scenes in the movie because both times I saw it, you get a audible gasp when it happens is when they get hit by the train.
Yeah.
All right, so they've acknowledged. I can understand them surviving the train wreck because they had the power coins. They're a little bit stronger. They can, walk away from something that would normally kill somebody.
Yeah.
I get that. How the fuck do they get home?
So right before you said that last question, I thought you were going to say it was extremely unrealistic what that train would have done to that van.
Yeah, that too.
It would not have just dented it and flung it very far away for it to roll. That thing would have been ripped
in half.
It would have been ripped into so many pieces that I don't care, Ranger or not, they would have been vaporized. But if we accept that,
yeah, I guess as far as that scene's concerned, that's the least of my worries.
True. But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I was intrigued by the idea of, they somehow made it home and whatnot, but right. Were they going to go back and give me a sense as to why that happened?
Like, no one remembers why they got home. They all say they've lost basically a day of their lives. They all sleep for a full day.
Yeah, it was like lost time.
Yeah. But it's never addressed after that how they got from point A to point B. Right.
Did they, somehow subconsciously pick themselves up and get themselves out and get home? Did they utilize some of that trusty transport power that we talked about before? That kind of stuff. And yeah, you're right. They definitely could have filled that in.
I really thought they were going to explain it that Alpha put them away. Like,
that would have been easy.
Realized they took the coins and like, these are the Rangers that we have to be watching for. So I want to make sure they get home safe and sound. Or even like play it like a little bit more Destiny where, Alpha's in the ship, conscious, sort of watching the town and, I don't know, keeping an eye on these, maybe specifically these kids. And so he knows where because otherwise, like, if they just get the coins and Alpha picks them up, how does he know where they live? Like, that would be another question. But
that's true. No, at that point, they couldn't have done that because they didn't wake Alpha up because
Right.
they hadn't gone into the ship yet. But
I'm just saying,
yeah,
hypothetically, if you rewrite some of the story bits, that if he was already there and awake for 65 million years just waiting for something to happen.
Yeah, he could have been awoken the moment that the coins were taken possession of, not necessarily when they re-entered the ship.
Right.
Yeah.
Some of the other stuff, I guess my next couple bullet points all have to do with, like, basically consequences that never happened.
Okay.
Spinning from the van, Billy totals his parents' van. There is no, like, police coming to their door, which they're obviously looking and getting the license plate the day after.
Yeah.
You don't see any police questioning Billy. His parents don't seem to be upset at all that he just totaled their fucking vehicle.
They're not. Yeah, apparently they don't even know he took it, or they're not aware that it's missing at all.
Right.
Let alone how it got to where it was found. Like, yeah, I mean, as far as they knew, Billy left the house the night before with Jason in the van.
Yeah, not to mention they could have been missing that entire next day. And there's no, like, town-wide manhunt for these missing 5 kids.
Yeah, and you're right. And it's a good point. So if they say, like, oh, we slept all day yesterday, like, your parents never came in to figure out, like, oh, you came in at 1 a.m., but it's now 5 p.m. and you're still sleeping. You never woke up or left that bed.
Yeah.
Teenagers.
And then sort of going along with that is Trini's room gets completely fucked when Rita shows up.
Right?
And then
Right?
the next shot you see of her room is her 2 little brothers helping her spackle the wall.
And it didn't wake any of her family up.
Right? Yeah, that too.
And yeah, there's like no talk like, so hey Trini, like, what the frick did you do to your room?
Don't have a ballroom brawl in your bedroom.
Yeah.
It's like the parents of this universe are non-existent, except for Jason's.
Yeah, I mean, there's a shot, I almost didn't remember the second time I went in thinking like, did they talk about Jason's mom being dead? Is he also, but when he gets home that first time or something, or from detention the first day, something there, you see him, you do see like a little sister and a mom character, but primarily, yeah, it's like him and his dad.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, and that's not even uber extensive, but that's probably really the most like no, I'd say that probably about equals the relationship you see, the depth of the relationship that you see with Zach and his mom.
Between who?
Was Zach and Zach's mother.
Right,
like,
okay.
Like, that's about as deep as the relationship goes, that they portray between Jason and his dad.
Right, okay.
Which
okay.
is all still very surface stuff. But, yeah, you're right. Like, the parents and, don't...
Because, like, the scene you get earlier with Trini and her dad and mother or stepmother, I'm really unclear how that family dynamic works, but...
Sure.
Like, the mother seems to be very overbearing. If you're causing that much damage and noise in your bedroom, I feel like she would be the first one in there, just spewing venom at you. Like, shut the fuck up, go the fuck to bed.
Just... As the walls are shaking and there's a hole in the door, she just doesn't even bother coming in. She just pounds on the door.
Yeah.
Tells you, get to sleep, keeping us all up.
There's no questioning of what the hell did you do last night or what kind of nightmares did you have that you busted through a fucking wall.
And the scene where they, like Zach, you kind of get the reason for it, but the night they decide to just sleep up on the mountain.
Yeah.
Like, you're 17 years old. Like, what do you mean you're just gonna go sleep? Like, none of you don't have sleeping bags. You don't have a vessel to sleep in. It looks like it's probably kind of cold up there at night. And none of your parents are gonna notice that their 17-year-old just didn't come home and they're not gonna care about that?
And then for being a kid's movie, they may be possibly drinking alcohol?
Yeah, that was a little unclear, right? It felt like it was getting alluded to, but still could have been ambiguous enough, like, boy, these root beers are tasty,
right.
Zach.
Yeah, they made it a point not to show you a label.
No, not at all. You just basically had like a brown bottle.
Right. One thing that, again, because it happens at least twice, like, I'm surprised there's no more dire consequences because, especially in today's day and age, Billy brings a bomb to school and gets detention.
Yes.
There should be a
and
lot more severe punishment for that.
That's the other thing, right? Because that's what it seemed like, that he said, like, all he really said was his lunchbox exploded. They don't really give the reason why, but you're probably left with the impression that maybe it was accidentally putting components together that should not have been, and ended up having this result. Like, the idea was not to put something together that could have been combustible.
Right, but as soon as that thing goes off in a school,
Yes.
and all you get is detention, like, that's grounds for being thrown in jail.
True, and maybe I'm not, playing the PC card, but maybe in this world, like, Billy is a special needs child. He has Asperger's.
Yeah, I could
don't
buy
want to do
a
that.
little bit, yeah.
At the same time, what would be the use, even if you're generous in that way, what would be the use of giving that kid detention?
Yeah.
Like, that's one thing, like, going back to the Breakfast Club, I never understood, especially about Andrew and Brian's story in there. Andrew beats the crap out of some kid in the locker room, like, assaults him to the point of almost putting him in the hospital. I know, actually, they say they do, because he, like, ripped skin off of his butt when he taped his butt together. And yeah, same thing with Brian. Like, you brought a weapon into the school. Yeah, it's a flare gun, but you know what? You fire that at someone in close range, it's gonna F them up.
Right.
And the solution in the school district and in the town, Saturday detention. And they, that kind of carried over into here. Like, how the hell does that work?
I mean, I guess, the Breakfast Club was in the 80s, a little bit different day and age, so maybe they could let that
Right.
sort of slide for that tone. But in
Right.
today's day and age, for this type of realistic tone that they want to do for this Power Rangers movie, that, to me, stood out like a sore thumb.
Granted, exactly. The one thing along those lines that I guess I would point out was the, like, astonished look that Rita has and the reaction she has when she sees the Megazord for the first time. To me, it was as if she didn't know that could happen.
I was led to believe that was almost, again, maybe judging from just her reaction, but I took that to mean that had never happened before.
Yeah, same. So she's like, I never knew that was possible. How in the world is this happening? Again, if she's a ranger herself with a team for quite a long time, she has a Zord of her own somewhere.
That's
connected
true.
connected to the green power coin. There's a Zord somewhere. And we're led to believe that in all the time that she was exposed to this, there was never a point in which those Zords joined in this way, in any way like that.
All right,
that seems unbelievable.
I could combat that.
Okay.
Only because it seems like they're pushing this whole, like, we have to be connected as a team. That's how we morph. That's how we get together and fight well. And
Yeah.
you're led to believe that's how the Zords come together, is they're on the same wavelength. If Rita's part of this team and she's had this quest for more power the entire time, that throws the whole team off sync.
Okay.
So I could see, the 5 that we see joined together, I could see those 5 Rangers making the Megazord. But if you have 6 Rangers, 6 Zords, and you need all 6 to be on the same wavelength to make the Megazord, and one of them is the odd man out, the bad apple.
Yeah. I feel that's a thin stretch, but I'll give it to you.
That's all I got.
I'll allow it. I was along the lines of the Megazord. I will say I thought it was a couple things I did like about the choices they made. One, I liked that they were not just in some general arbitrary central area.
Oh yeah.
Just playing with controls that you weren't sure what everybody was doing. I liked the sort of compartmental idea.
Yeah.
That's, again, grounded. That seemed very realistic. They're going to need to be specialized in the area of this machine that each of them is responsible for coordinating.
Yeah.
And to some degree, it reminded me a lot of Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
In the approach to that. But it was cool. You had 5 different people to fit in this one thing. I think it would have been a little silly to all have them just in one central, like, Star Trek-y kind of command bridge type of place.
Yeah.
So I like that. I also really like the fact that they pull off the pterodactyl's wings and that become the swords.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was awesome, because I do remember in the first, again, things I haven't watched in 20 years, but I still remember, in the first episode of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, they are stuck fighting an enlarged Goldar, same as this.
Okay.
Obviously Goldar in the series is, Rita's general. He doesn't ever die.
Yeah.
So they don't defeat him. But out of nowhere during this fight, with no other previous mention, Jason, I think, just yells out, "Power Sword!" And the Power Sword just falls from the sky.
And that's usually when they do like some sort of like hand gesture, like, let's all point at the sky, and then the sword comes down.
Yeah. And so I was wondering if they're going to go weaponized in this version like that. How are they going to do it? Because just calling out a weapon for the Megazord out of any of their individual Zords that they would not know yet would just be really strange. But I thought that was a really slick idea to have the pterodactyl that's already the back piece just sort of split off, and that becomes like your two-handed, sabers. I thought that was really sweet.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good, almost Transformer-esque, of how like every piece is useful, it has a purpose.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that worked.
What did you think about, like, at that point, Rita kind of like meshes herself into Goldar?
Right.
What did you think of that, and like what became of it? I thought I was waiting for something bigger to happen.
Yeah, I mean, the only gist I sort of got from it was that she was trying to beef up his power a little bit.
Right.
Because, up until that point, they were trying to fight piece by piece, like, all separate Zords. So when they became one big Megazord, she felt that maybe she needed to add a little bit more power to him to be able to, I don't know, take them on, I guess. Because it wasn't until she was part of him that they made a sword.
That's true. I guess I was thinking that perhaps they were going to go really abstract, and when she...
like, make her grow.
Either make her grow, or it would almost be like, I want to say like Mortal Kombat in nature, but like Animalia. Like, she meshes into Goldar, but the resulting creature, the resulting thing that you get was going to be this, like, more abstract version of the Dragon Zord.
Oh, okay.
So whereas the Dragon Zord in this world wouldn't actually be another, like, separate Zord type thing, because with Goldar, you already had the wings.
Yeah.
You had like a big creature, then you like add her essence, and then like it could be basically she is the Dragon Zord type of thing. I thought they might, but that could have been interesting. I'm not like sad they didn't do that, but I didn't really see much of an advantage or a point to what they did do with it.
Yeah. I mean, the fight doesn't last too long either, so it's not like they have a lot to do. So, yeah, I don't know. Because the only thing I remember happening is, like, she goes in there, his center kind of glows green for a second, and then they go back to the fight. And then, to be honest, I kind of forget she's in there until they defeat Goldar, and then she sort of, like, spews back out.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know specifically what the point of that was.
Yeah. Thought they could have done a little bit more with it, but, again, overall, I mean, I'm so pleased with this movie. I wouldn't say my expectations were low, but I was definitely not expecting the creators to care about what they were making this much.
Yeah.
These little things I can definitely let go.
Well, I got a couple more little things for you.
Uh-oh, you're gonna tear me down. Knock me down a peg.
Alright, so they make a big hole in the ground digging for this crystal.
Aye.
Which, to my knowledge, they don't fill. So, I feel like having an exposed crystal in the ground that apparently gives life, I feel like it's the first thing like the government or some sort of secret agency would be there trying to dig for. Like, it's no longer a secret once you've exposed the ground and the crystal's just sitting there glowing green.
True.
Not to mention, people start taking fucking pictures of a Megazord with their phone that I'm sure went on social media, so when the fuck did the cavalry come in and was like, what the fuck's going on here?
Maybe when they emerged with the Megazord, it's because they don't really show unless I don't remember, they don't really show the hole again, like into the hole after the Megazord emerges from it.
Correct.
So maybe its emergence with all the like subterranean magma and everything like seals it up somehow.
All right.
A bit more. At least maybe not the whole way, but covers the exposure to the crystal a bit more than it was.
I mean,
because you're right. Otherwise, there's just a gigantic hole that goes like half a mile down into the Earth's crust.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the best explanation I can ask for, I guess, because I got nothing. One thing that I feel like must have got cut from either the movie or the script, because it just pops out of nowhere, and then it seems like there's some importance to it at the end of the movie, is Jason's sword.
Yes, I did write that one down.
They're fighting, it grows on his arm, he uses a little bit, goes away.
Like the putties and stuff.
Yeah, and then by the end of the thing, when he goes back to visit the ship, he turns in the sword like it's an important thing.
Or like that's where he got it.
Right, and Zordon says, like, you should keep that, and he's like, I'll be back for it.
Back for it. Like, yeah, I that was lost on me.
So, yeah, something's there that it should have been there, but it's not. So I don't know when we'll get any type of explanation for that, but it stuck out to me.
Oh, definitely. And I didn't catch it the first time at all. Like, I noticed that he kind of had it during some of the putty fights once they completely morphed.
Yeah.
But the first time I saw the movie, I didn't really catch that part at the end, and this time I did. Right, and it didn't seem like any of the other Rangers had any sort of personalized weapons that, like, manifested for them.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I could gather is that it must be some sort of symbolism of, like, I'm the leader.
Sure.
So he's accepting responsibility for being the leader, he gets the sword, he's able to use it.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed he was the only one that had a weapon and no one else has any other weapons to do anything with. But if that's the point of the sword, which we never really know, I can buy that.
Yeah, and I mean, on the one hand, it kind of has like a Sword of Gryffindor kind of feel to it at the moment, where it's like, it could be called to your aid if you need it. It can be summoned, either physically, like, summoning it through where it would travel from the spaceship, or it would just manifest wherever he is.
Yeah, because you're led to believe that if it just pops out of his arm like it did during the fight,
yeah,
that why does it stay solid when he's done fighting? It wouldn't just go back into a suit and he can just call it later?
That was the one glaring thing that I definitely picked up this
They're not
time.
even sure how to use the sword, and they make it do two different things, which, they contradict each other.
Yeah, that I can't argue out of that one. And maybe in the sequel, the other Rangers, additional training, additional growth, releases, access to further things in the, in the morphing grid or whatever they'll say. And, maybe they will, somehow get individualized weapons in the sequel, maybe.
Yeah.
They definitely, I mean, now that they've done such a great character study with the first one, I'm hoping that the sequel will, I hate to say it, but have more Ranger action then. I mean, they can continue to grow with Zordon and Rita or whatever the antagonist is in the overall story arc, but I think the second movie definitely needs more, quote, like, superhero action to it.
Yeah, I think better. They definitely need to do a better job with the fight sequences.
Yeah.
I think they felt a little bit lacking to me. Because, if they're trying to distance themselves from the campy, silly nature of the Power Rangers TV show, which had a bunch of silly fights and weirdly choreographed stuff that doesn't necessarily... There was a lot of, like, back handsprings and stuff for no apparent reason.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, if you want to, like, I want to see some good hand-to-hand fighting choreography, because even the people, like, if you're putting people in a Power Ranger suit and you're making them film a fight scene, you can put anybody in that suit, so put someone in there that knows what the hell they're doing, and you can choreograph these really cool fight sequences.
That's true, and, maybe I just realized maybe that's one of the reasons that I thought the putties were so lackluster, is that pretty much the moment they went in the suit, every moment of that was CGI. So you never got a moment where I really felt like I was potentially watching a real actor. I mean, maybe there was some motion capture going on,
I'm assuming motion capture, yeah.
but I think it would have felt really good to believe that I was watching someone in a real suit do some of the real filming.
Yeah.
To some degree. Some practical shots. And I think that, now you got that when they're in the Zords, but none of the, quick fight scenes that like you said, that 1 minute or two that you get with the putties on the mountain.
And maybe it's just maybe they just need other types of adversaries for them to fight that's not the putties. I don't know what kind of minions you can fight that aren't the putties, because the putties were such a big thing in the show.
They were, and maybe that's the thing for going forward. Maybe they need mid-level threats while the whole main story is going on. So you don't necessarily have a battalion of putties to fight at some point, but you have let's say in this movie Goldar was not the big, the boss at the end, but he was, not being a creature himself, just this manifestation made out of a material.
Okay.
By Rita. What if something like that could have happened where there was just another elemental that they had to deal with? Something else that was a result of her power or force or something that they needed to combat that seemed, more of a threat than just the rock monsters that fall apart the moment you touch them.
Or even I feel like you could sort of do it. I feel like it's mostly the 3-act structure they sort of took in the TV show was a villain, the main villain shows up. They fight him the first time, they lose. They come across the villain again. They fight him again, they're starting to win, and that's when he becomes big. They call in the Megazords, and you get 3 fights out of that.
Yeah, that's true.
So that, that could be a template they try to use too. Of course, I don't know if that's going to be paint by numbers Power Rangers that, people are like, oh, okay, now this is going to, try to keep people on their toes a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah.
What did you think with the power coins? Were you sort of upset that they didn't actually have morphers and they just had these coins that I'm guessing they just have to keep on their person and then they can morph?
No, not entirely. I guess some of the IMDb trivia that I read on this said that there's a lot of the original series mixed with one of the other iterations, maybe one of the more recent ones, one of the Dino Thunder or something. And I guess in one of the power source, here it is, the Dino Gems from Power Rangers Dino Thunder from 2004. I was okay with it. I mean, it was just a different way to show, again, sort of like Guardians of the not Guardians, but the Infinity Stones. These are abstracts, these are elementals, these are singularities, this is force and power concentrated and materialized. And this is how they are contained. This is how they exist. This is how they stay, in physical form. It was a different way of portraying it than I was used to seeing, but I was fine with that because I feel like if they had tried to go the coin route with a morpher, it might have been too on the campy side and might have felt like, oh, that's just that's a particular thing that they chose from the old way of doing it that they decided to keep because they thought people would want to see it rather than trying something different.
Right. I'm not saying we need an actual coin. I like that they were sort of like crystals, like you're saying, that harness power and stuff like that. It just, to me, it seemed like the first half of the movie, it was all about getting these coins and having them. And then the second half of the movie, you don't know if they actually still have them on them and they're able to channel this, but the coins just basically go away at the second half of the movie.
That's true.
I sort of, and maybe it's just me wanting more of the regular Power Ranger stuff, but I thought if they had the morphers, they'd have to put those specific coins or crystals in the morpher to be able to, sort of like what you said, be able to harness that energy and direct it somewhere instead of just being sure that they have this coin in their pocket so they can morph and call forth the armor.
Yeah.
It was,
yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe like the explanations are just a little bit too general or unspecific for me, that it raises questions that aren't really important to the story, but to me, I'm like, I want to know, how does it work?
Okay.
Yeah, I think we've gone through pretty much all the bullet point stuff that I had, like all my things I want to poke holes at and stuff. Again, nothing I don't think that takes away from the movie. Like, I still really enjoyed it, but the story, like, I feel like these are just writing nitpicks that I think could have been fixed with some other, like, I don't know if they just assume people just can forget about this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, the plot threads that hang open or are unanswered really, really bug me. So I just want to throw them out there for people. Hopefully I'm not, like, killing anyone's viewing experience by pointing all these holes out that I find, but that's just sort of where I go with it.
No, not at all. I think, I mean, when they leave such... there was a lot of good points you brought up that I think I realized at the time, but didn't connect the dots as to really how glaring that they were.
Yeah, to be fair, like, I didn't pick up on most of these until after second viewing. Like, the first viewing, I was like, this is great. And then I saw it again, and I was like, wait a minute, they don't touch that again. They don't talk about that again. And then it became more obvious, and then it started to bug me after that. But again, that's sort of one of my reasons why I like to see these movies twice, so I can pick up on some of these things a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's probably a good time to talk about the end credits scene.
Sure.
Which, I mean, for anybody that follows the Power Rangers lore, we get the name Tommy Oliver.
Yeah.
So, of course, we're expecting the Green Ranger of some kind, which they don't show. So it was a smart move because they left it open to cast whoever at a later date.
Oh, yeah. Smart move.
Because I was waiting to be like, oh, who's going to be Tommy? Is it going to be someone I recognize? Have they kept that a secret? And they didn't show anybody. So, right. Smart move.
Very smart. And again, them perhaps, not saying this was the whole master plan, but not knowing exactly how the reception and box office to this movie was going to be. Maybe they weren't sure if they would move forward on a sequel.
Right.
So why bother having someone fill in the role when you can leave it open-ended?
Yeah. I think there's as far as I know, I think there was an online petition by somebody. I don't know if it was like the people in the cast pulling for it or if it was internet people, but I've seen a lot of headlines pointing towards people pulling for a female Green Ranger.
I saw something like that too, and I guess, I don't know if it was fueled by that or not, but that when one of the websites that I read that was reporting on that is that the cast themselves are pulling for that.
Okay. Yeah, I couldn't remember where it originated.
But, I mean, who knows? Could have been, like chicken and the egg. Did they hear some things and say, oh, that'd be a cool idea? Or did it organically begin there as well? Who knows?
Right. I mean, they had the female Green Ranger with Elizabeth Banks, so it would make sense to have another female Green Ranger. I think it'd be a fun twist. Like, we're all expecting this male, leader Tommy to show up.
Yeah, the only problem with that with me is they want to keep that name because obviously Tommy Oliver is the most, famous Ranger name in the canon.
Yeah.
But Tommy is not really one of those like unisex names.
Yeah, that was
really feels like it goes with a woman easily. I mean, the biggest stretch that I've seen in a long time, I could go to like on the show Scrubs, Sarah Chalk's character's name is Elliot.
Yeah.
And that's very uncommon. That's the only time I've ever really heard that used, but it works on there somehow. So sometimes you can pick out something that's not really commonly used, but Tommy, I mean, maybe unless it was like Tomi.
See, the other way I was thinking is they could play it off as like a nickname that she's adopted. Like maybe she's a Tommy boy. So Tommy sticks.
Yeah, that's actually much more clever than anything I said. That could work.
It's a stretch, but to me,
it's a better stretch than what I said.
Yeah.
It's way better than what I said.
I mean, you don't see how it's written, so maybe it is Tomi. Like Tori, but Tommy.
Yeah, and you figure they might, even though they did this on the show, for the longest time, they had 4 males and 2 females on the team.
Yeah.
They might not want to do that again. They might want to keep the balance even.
Yeah.
And, it would be a good continuation. Rita, the Green Ranger power she used to harness goes to another woman.
So this is something I tried to look at when I watched it the second time, and I still wasn't really clear what happens to the green power coin at the end.
So, from what I could tell, she comes out of Goldar, and that sounded way dirtier than it wanted to be. But, Goldar expels it. No, that's not any better. Once she is no longer controlling the Goldar Zord thingy.
It's probably as good as you're going to get.
Yeah. They make a point to say, like, we'll take you to the command center, Zordon will judge you, but for now, you have to give us your staff and power coin. She's basically like, pried out of my cold, dead hands.
Yeah.
And then she goes to attack, and yeah, they like bitch slap her, and she flies into space.
I don't remember seeing the staff with her in space.
The second time I made a point to look, and it is not.
Okay.
So it is in her hands as she is leaping to attack, and it is no longer as she's exiting the atmosphere.
Okay.
So I'm assuming they retrieved it.
Okay. They just went and tried to find the staff somewhere, and then they picked it up on their way back to the command center?
Sure.
Okay.
So I'm assuming it's in their possession.
Okay. There was actually one, I guess maybe it was like a theory that I think it was somebody's, I'm trying to remember where the hell I saw it. Oh, it was, pretty sure I was watching Andre Blacknerd's review for Power Rangers, and
okay.
His sort of thought for Tommy not being present was that, his sort of theory was that Rita already had him. Granted, we see her like
That's
frozen.
That's why he's not in detention?
Right. Granted, we see her like frozen in space, but just for the sake of argument, it could set up the next movie for him being evil if she's already got him sort of under her thumb.
I guess it's possible. I could entertain that. I would argue, though, that you don't hear... First of all, she's been expelled into space. Yeah. I'm assuming that is where she will remain for the foreseeable future events. As she is flying away from Earth, they specifically have the moon over her shoulder in the background as they show her starting to kind of ice up. Now, in the at least in the American show, I don't know about the original Japanese version, but the American show, her sort of base of operations and her command center, so to speak, is on the moon.
Right.
So what that would mean, given the timeline that I'm assuming, is she's expelled into space. Tommy is supposed to be in detention to the point where his jacket is literally on the seat already. He just happens to not be occupying it at the moment.
Right.
But she then somehow got back to Earth and snatched him away. Like, it's an interesting point, and it didn't occur to me to connect those possible dots, but I don't know if I would buy that.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was a stretch. I just sort of wanted your thoughts. I thought it would be a cool thing if they... Like, I'd buy it if they went that route, just because I think it would set up a cool story for the next movie.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, you have to assume not everyone has seen the end credits sting. So, that being the case, whenever the sequel comes out, if you are going to introduce Tommy Oliver, you still have to set up and introduce Tommy Oliver.
Right.
And set up the fact that he could be under Rita's control type of thing. Like, that has to happen in the next movie. You have to see that.
Which is true. I would... Well... So on the one hand, I would say that they can't really go with the Rita controls somebody and imparts the Green Ranger power to them again like they did on the show, because as we just discussed, it doesn't seem like she has her power anymore.
Oh, that's true. The coin would power the staff and what she was doing.
To a big degree. Like, even when they pull her out of the ocean, like, I think probably the only reason she survives and can be preserved for 65 million years is she gets blown out to sea by the meteor, but retained her power coin, her power gem, whatever. Right. And so even as they dig her up out of the sea and she's in the fisherman's boat, the first thing that glows green is the coin in her hand, and then her eyes, and she comes to life. So there's a big correlation to the two. So while she might still have a life force in space, I would argue that she doesn't have access to the power of all that anymore.
Yeah. Do you think we're led to believe the way they leave it with the moon in the background that she's going to end up on the moon? Do you think they'll pull that from the TV show and put her out there?
I mean, they definitely could if they're going to continue with her as the overarching villain, at least kind of pulling the strings in some way, having a proximity to Earth. Like, if she's on Earth, they're just going to go try to kill her.
Yeah.
Because she's not just going to be there somewhere with a base of operations effing stuff up. Like, if she's around, they're going to go after her. If she's out of arm's reach on an everyday basis, and she's, plotting from a nearby celestial body, that could make more sense.
I wanted to give her, like, the castle with, like, the telescope and all that stuff.
Yep.
That'd be great.
Yep. Don't ya?
Do we want to speculate on any type of eventual sequels? According to Saban, we're going to get 5 more.
5
if
more,
this
yeah.
works. Like, the obvious one is Lord Zed. Like, we have to be getting Lord Zed, right?
I would hope that I would hope that Zed would be, like, the credit tag after the next movie.
Yeah.
Not in the next movie.
Okay, okay.
He shows up. Like, if you have a 6-story arc, again, depending on how much they want to use the previous roadmap of the Rangers as their guide, if they have Zed as, like, the main co-villain in the second part already, then what are you going to do with him for the next 4 movies?
So you think
You're going to lose him or Rita in number 3 or 4, and you're going to need to replace them. And if you wait one more iteration, well, now you're only halfway through before he's really a threat.
So I guess with that sense, in that mind, I guess it does make sense that Tommy would be the villain in the second one.
It's a potential.
Because as far as like big name villains, it's Rita and Zed, as far as I know, for the Power Rangers. So if you want to keep Zed for 3, I think it would be a good fight for them to face off against, sort of like again, sort of like one of their own. It could be someone they meet in detention, they become fast friends. Suddenly he's enthrust with this Green Ranger power. And that's pretty much how it played out in the show, right? Didn't they meet him? They were friends. He became evil, and then they had to fight him.
Yeah, he's like the new kid in school, and Rita recognizes, like, oh, he could be an equal to them. He's a good candidate.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would make for a really good sequel.
And then maybe by the end of the second one, you might even have, Zed showing up to say to Rita, like, you've had all this time and you couldn't finish the job or something.
Well, she alludes to, like, there's other people coming.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they let that thread dangle there.
Yeah. Because of all you figure as the Rangers, her team had to protect the pieces of the Zeo Crystal from her. But as the team, even her as a part of it, they would have had other threats in the universe to be fighting.
That would be a good thing, too.
So she knows that.
That necessarily they don't have to all be on Earth. Like, they could be intergalactic Power Rangers. They could send them to another planet to protect another crystal from someone else.
True. I'd hope that. Initially, the first thought that strikes me is I hope they don't do that immediately in the second one, because I feel like you need to keep a firm foundation. Like, the moment you leave Earth and you start doing things that are outside of the ability of my reality right now, as grounded as you're trying to make this, then I don't care as much.
Well, this is the same one that in an opening shot shows a spaceship flying over in the background. Like, I'm assuming it's their spaceship, but there is a spaceship involved, so they have transportation.
Yeah, which is true, but if the conflict is for someone else's safety, not so much ours.
But that's the thing, like, are there more Power Ranger teams, or are these 5 it?
I get the impression, well...
Because Zordon made it seem like there are other planets with other crystals. So
with other crystals, but not necessarily other teams.
Right. So if they are entrusted with protecting the crystals, and there are more planets with other crystals and no one else to defend them, the burden falls on them.
Which would be true. I guess I hope we would get at least one more iteration where the humans of Earth need to protect their home before they go off saving the universe. Because that was one of the things that honestly ended up drawing me out of the show when I was a kid, not to mention, I mean, just my age, which was everything started becoming like interdimension and other planets and other realities and other places. And like, I didn't feel as connected to it anymore.
Right. But I mean, the other side of it, and I can understand maybe the next 1 or 2, like up to 3, you might be able to pass being on Earth. But if you're trying to do 6 movies, I feel like it runs the chance of growing stale if everything just shows. You know, it's like the Transformers movies. I know you don't watch.
It's always going to seem episodic.
Every time they find another reason for someone else in the galaxy to show up on Earth to fight or find something, it's like, well, why? What is it about these stories that everyone's coming to Earth for different reasons?
Okay, that's a good point.
Especially if they have a 6-movie arc planned. I don't think you can stay on Earth for 6 movies and do something different each time.
I'll give you that. Yeah, all the way to the end. All the way to the end of like 6. Yeah, I could see that. I'm just hoping at least, like I said, at least for the next one, they keep the idea of like the homegrown battle there.
Yeah, because
I think that would help establish.
I still think they have like the characters themselves and as Rangers have a lot to learn before they can go fighting other people's battles out in space. So they can still grow and do other things over the next couple movies to, you know, get better, hone their craft and that kind of thing before they're out fighting other battles.
Yeah, definitely. And you know what? That's a good point, because going from, well, you know what you said earlier about the team only having like 11 days to get together to fight this threat at first, if they jump right to some kind of like intergalactic other world type of battle, is it really going to be believable that they could handle that already?
Right. Yeah. You know, it gives them another reason to extend that story. 6 movies seems like a lot to put under their belt, but I mean, the good thing is if they're coming into after the first one, or coming into the first one saying, we have a 6-movie plan, that's better than saying, okay, this movie's now a hit that we planned to be a one-off, now let's make 5 other movies.
Right.
So that gives me a little bit more confidence that they sort of have an idea what they want to do.
Right, and I'm hoping that, well, not hoping, but it's also possible, I mean, honestly, they're not going to be able to get these movies out any sooner than a year and a half to 2 years apart.
Oh, yeah.
So there's also the potential that after the second or third installment, you're going to have a change up of at least some of the Rangers.
Oh, yeah, that was another point I thought of before, is that I think it was something we talked about on Facebook whenever you were reviewing the movie a little bit after you saw it. That if potentially they're doing 6 movies, that's, you know, at least 12 years. If you're doing 2 years a movie, the people that are supposed to be playing teenagers at this point are going to be adults by the time that 6 movies start. So are you still going to have adults be playing teenagers?
Or do you let them grow? Do you let their characters age as the story goes?
Right. Which I think would be a smart way to do it, because that would keep things fresh if after 3 movies you have to change up your cast because they're no longer teenagers.
Yeah.
And I think you even mentioned, like, in this universe, you would not be surprised if they kill all these people, or at least some of these people.
No, not at all. It would be, I mean, it could, with the way that they've been going, if they really want to get earnest with it, I mean, look at the opening. You had the death of the Rangers.
Yeah.
You know, you could definitely have a passing off, not just because, you know, like they did some of the crappy ways on the TV show, but that literally, like, they're killed and someone else has to, you know, be the one to inherit the power, hopefully.
Yeah, that would be a good way to raise the stakes for everybody else involved. Especially the new guys coming in. You're like, well, you're new, you could be wiped out in any minute.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that'd be a smart way to do it. Here's hoping.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that might be just a fun little segue into, because I think you were trying to look this up, right? How crazy or stupid ways that people left the show or they wrote characters out in the TV show?
Pretty much, because I remember most of them from when I was little, but then as I got older and looking back on it, I thought, wow, that was really unbelievable and just kind of lame. So I kind of wrote like a roadmap from the beginning up until the point where I left the show, which, to repeat from the beginning, was like after like around like season 5, once they actually hit like a rebranding with Power Rangers Zeo. So, and it also coincides with pretty much getting to the point where, the original team gets completely off the show. So you like have gone through like one entire iteration. So you start the series with Jason, Zach, Trini, Billy, and Kimberly. During season 1, you add Tommy as the Green Ranger. In season 2, Tommy loses the green power, but he's then kind of like reincarnated, so to speak, as the White Ranger. During that season also, the first cast members exit the show. Zach, Jason, and Trini leave. And the justification given on the show is that they are selected to be the Angel Grove representatives at the International Peace Conference. So they are literally already peacekeepers. They're intergalactic global peacekeepers, as you know, as physical as you can be, but in terms of, you know, I guess domestic Earthian geopolitics go, they're going to give that up to go to, like, I can't even imagine. It's not even like they have a seat, like a permanent seat on like the UN Youth Council or something.
Yeah.
They're probably going, I think it's in Switzerland. So they go to Switzerland for like a week. And so they're going to stop being Power Rangers for that permanently.
Is that how long they said they were supposed to be gone? It's just a week?
I mean, how long can it be? They're high school students.
That's true. I guess they got to come back and graduate at some point.
Yeah. And that's, I never thought of, like, wouldn't that be a weird dynamic? Like, as soon as they're done with that, they're going to come back to school.
Yeah.
And like Tommy, Kimberly, Bill, like all the replacements, they're all still there.
Yeah.
Like, do you sit in algebra class and just like kind of ignore everything that's happened? That's not going to work. So anyway, so Zach, Trini, and Jason are replaced by Rocky, Adam, and Aisha. Again,
Aisha,
Rocky being,
that's the other one I couldn't think of the name.
Yeah, Rocky being possibly the most unpopular Ranger. I can't say ever, because obviously I didn't watch 25 years worth of these shows,
Yeah.
but at least in the first like 5, possibly the most unpopular Ranger. And he was inherited the power of the Red Ranger. He's supposed to kind of be the second, like, by that time it's obvious that Tommy is in control of the team.
Oh yeah.
But he's effectively like second in command. And it's just, he's effing terrible. Like, watch that first movie we're talking about again. Watch that first Power Rangers movie. He's awful.
Well, that's why, like, even that Power Rangers short film, that's why they made Rocky the bad guy.
I think so.
It at least gave him something interesting to do in that short film.
Oh, frick, yeah. Like, James Vanderbeek brought so much interesting character to that person. It was, you know, it was just so empty before.
Yeah.
So the movie comes along, they switch up some Zords, but the team carries along. So after the movie in season 3, Kimberly, who's part of the original team still, Kimberly leaves to be replaced by an Australian girl named Catherine, who goes by Cat for short. And see, that's clever because she, just like Tommy, is initially under the control of Rita, and she is sometimes, I kid you not, like an animagus, she's in the form of a frickin' cat walking around while she's under the dark power. But Kimberly leaves because she gets selected to be trained by a world-famous gymnastic coach to go compete at the Pan Global Games in Florida.
Some of these people have their priorities wrong. You are
frickin' gymnast.
destined
Are you
to
kidding
protect
me?
the Earth and the universe from intergalactic threats.
But she has to follow her dreams.
Man.
I gotta go do the gymnastics. This very sought after exclusive coach who happened to be in Angel Grove, wherever the frick that is, California. I never even got the impression that Angel Grove was supposed to be like a stand-in for Los Angeles or San Francisco, like a big, massive, burgeoning metropolis. I thought it was just supposed to be like, maybe like a mid-sized suburb.
See, I thought there was I actually think I read some of this today, and I can't remember what specific towns they were talking about, but there was continuity errors on where Angel Grove actually is. Like the first couple seasons, it is like a sort of a suburb of LA or some sort of downtown California town. And then somewhere later in the seasons, they just move it to be like a backwater, sort of like what it is in the movie. So a little bit more secluded town somewhere.
Yeah.
So depending on
Wouldn't
what season you
me.
watch, it could end up anywhere in California.
Well, I'm glad we talked a lot about some of the iterations of the Rangers earlier in the show, because this is where it gets really effed up. Because after, I guess you call it season 4 starts, this is where Rita's dad shows up and takes over the show and turns back time and turns the Rangers into kids. So as the kids are going through travels in time all through the season, finding the different pieces of the Zeo crystal to put back together to fix everything, Aisha, the Yellow Ranger, who again replaced Trini, the original Yellow Ranger, she meets a young black girl in Africa who she befriends, who, after they set the world right and they become adults again, or I guess, grown-up teenagers, Aisha leaves the show in order to stay in Africa and help wildlife. That's what she says. She decides that she can be of more use there. So she bequeaths the Yellow Ranger power to this friend that she meets, Tanya.
Okay.
So now you're under the 3rd Yellow Ranger.
Now, Billy's still original cast, right?
Billy is still there. Tommy is still there.
See, I don't know if I'd count Tommy at like original 5. Billy is...
Original 5, Billy is still there.
Okay.
So the Zeo crystal is put back together. Things are sort of set right. This transitions the show to Power Rangers Zeo, and they sort of officially brand it that way. Billy is supposed to become the Gold Ranger with the power of this Zeo, but they come up with some reason as to why he can't, and the actor who played Jason actually returns to the show to become the Gold Ranger.
Cock blocked.
Oh, yeah. And during the period in the previous season when the Rangers were all kids, Zordon brings these like temporary other Rangers, and maybe this goes to your question from before, but brings these temporary Rangers from another planet called Aquitar. So they're basically like amphibious mammal type of beings.
Okay.
After during the season of Power Rangers Zeo, Billy effectively says that he falls in love with one of them, and he wants to go live with her on her water planet.
I think that's the worst way to leave.
And that is how Billy leaves the show. So that is when the last original of the 5 leave.
I take it back. Actually, that one, compared to the other ones, actually might be one of the better ways to leave. Like, at least you can't, like, protect, everyone else is still on Earth. So they have no excuse why they shouldn't be there to protect it. If he goes off-world to another planet, alright, you got an excuse why you're not there to protect Earth.
Yes.
So I'll let that slide. I'll buy that.
So you get the last of the 5 heading off, and then right after the Zeo season is when you get the Turbo movie. So in the movie, you have Tommy, Rocky, and Adam still there. And Kat, I guess, is because she's the second Pink Ranger. So you have them, and I guess Tanya's still there as the 3rd Yellow Ranger.
Okay.
So you get the Turbo movie. They're all there. But then and I dropped out of watching this during the Zeo season, so I never saw any of this. But the movie happens, and then apparently right after the movie, when the series needs to pick it up on TV, Tommy, Adam, Tanya, and Kat all leave.
We'll take the movie paycheck, but we're not doing that TV shit no more.
Yeah, so you had like a mass exodus where they literally handed off like to an entirely new team.
See, I didn't realize those were those cast members were in the Turbo movie. Now I kind of feel like I want to watch it, even if it's shit.
Oh, it's bad. I mean, yeah, if you want to see those cast members, because I will say I always liked Johnny Young Bosch, who played Adam, the second Black Ranger. I always liked him as an actor. He seemed fun to see on screen, but that script, like, you're in for an hour and a half of just head smacks. So just prepare yourself for that.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so that is the point where I stopped going through, but because that's really where you lose your star Tommy and you lose like your first like second stringers.
Right. Yeah.
All the way through, but that is the evolution of how they decided to write some of these characters out of the show.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other reasons for other characters leaving that we don't know about after all the iterations of the Power Rangers that we didn't watch. Especially that one dude that in real life has been arrested now for stabbing his roommate with a sword.
Oh yeah, they got into an argument. This was a couple years ago. He just finally had the sentencing, I think. Like, it's been going through the actual courts and whatnot. Yeah, the actual murder happened in like 2012 or something, 2013 maybe. Yeah, he had a sword in their apartment. They got into an argument over something and ended up stabbing his roommate to death with a sword.
Yeah, that's just messed the fuck up.
And I'm pretty sure he used to be, I think he was one of the Red Rangers too.
Yeah. I don't remember his name because it wasn't one I watched, but the headlines and stuff like that I'd seen.
Yeah, and it feels like a few of the Rangers, like in later acting roles, I don't know, like, it's always funny to me when someone who played a Power Ranger ends up being naked in a movie later in their career. Just 'cause it's like the complete polar opposite, like the antithesis of
it's one good way
how the show portrayed characters.
To shake that image is to go the complete opposite of that.
Oh, very much. As a matter of fact, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the actress that plays Kat, the second Pink Ranger, I think she plays I don't even think she has a role, but like speaking role. I think she plays a naked corpse in the movie The Cell.
You go from being at the star of a show to not even getting lines and just having to be naked on a slab somewhere.
I think so. I know the one chick who was in one of the iterations in like the mid to late 90s, she's in, well, the one is naked a bunch in Not Another Teen Movie. One is in Cabin Fever. It's mainly the women that end up going that way. I don't hear too much about
I don't remember Jason David
guys.
Frank being naked in anything.
Him specifically, no, but do you remember, like, years ago, people thought that, there was, like, a gay porn actor that looked a lot like Austin St. John? The original Red Ranger?
No.
Yeah, that was a thing. I don't think it was him. Pretty sure it wasn't him.
We're still not confirmed on that. The ruling's still out, but...
Yeah.
I mean, we don't really know what he's been up to, right? So...
Yeah, this is true.
Yeah, I feel like the only one that actually had anything come out of it, or at least kept a career out of that, is Jason David Frank.
I think in the public eye more, definitely him. Actually, Amy Jo Johnson has stayed pretty active in certain things. I guess I read that just today that she has actually used crowdsourcing to make 2 of her own movies.
I
think she directed also.
I think I didn't know that. Yeah.
So I think that happened, and I guess Billy Yost, years later, like after like the 2000s, got into producing, and he's been like connected to like a couple of TV series in terms of producing.
Okay.
Like notable ones, but
yeah, I know. Jason David Frank still revisits like we were talking a little bit before about how some of the guest times that he's come back to the show and made different appearances, and he's like last week we were talking about the Superpower Beatdown YouTube series. Yeah. He made 2 appearances in that series. One is the White Ranger, one is the Green Ranger, because he does MMA fighting, so he knows how to handle himself.
Yeah.
And then even if you want, I think it's produced through the Bat and the Sun YouTube channel, who is the same company that does the Superpower Beatdown shows. They started a web series with him called My Morphin Life.
Oh, is that what that's through? I heard of that.
Yeah, it's basically like a docuseries of just like, seeing what I guess his personal life is. And like I watched some of the first season, a couple of the episodes. He still keeps in touch with some of the Power Rangers cast. Like, he was throwing a party, I think, at one point, and some of the original people from the show showed up as guests, and you see them just hanging out at the party, and so that's always
I'll have
fun
to watch that.
seeing people, that keep in touch after stuff like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not. Like I said, I only watched a couple episodes. I didn't watch it all. I think they might be into a season 2 now, but they should all be up on, I think, through the Bat and the Sun YouTube channel, so you can check that out if you're curious.
Yeah, I definitely will, especially the, what's it called, My Morphin Life?
Yes.
Yeah, I'll have to look at that as well.
Yeah, I think, from what I remember from the first season, like, some of it has to do with, like, him training for MMA fights. And then you get, like, some of the glimpse of his family life and him and his wife and stuff like that.
Dude, I just looked at the clock, and after our intro, I can't believe we've dissected Power Rangers for 2.5 hours.
I sort of feel like it was expected with you, because I feel like as far as Power Ranger fans go, you're the one I need to talk to.
I mean, I'm not bothered by it at all. I guess I just didn't expect it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think this is probably the longest episode we've had in a while, so...
I mean, time well spent for me.
Yeah, hopefully everybody else enjoyed it too.
So I will take the wind out of your sails a little bit and ask you, what would you give this movie as a rating or an overall impression?
Yeah, I've been trying to debate whether or not... I did enjoy it. I want to make that clear. I don't know if I want to go as high as a 9.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gravitating towards like an 8.5.
Okay.
Like I said, I really liked the characters. I really liked the story they set up. The plot holes bug me, but it's not detrimental to the overall product. But I do think the fight scenes were a little bit lacking. The third act of the film felt slow to me. I felt like, that's where the action is, and maybe just because the action didn't live up to my expectations for what I wanted it to be, I got a little bit bored.
Okay.
But the first 3/4 of the movie, I think, is so well done that I think it carries a lot more for me. So I think, yeah, somewhere 8.5 range, I think, for me, out of 10.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm really... This is going to sound like very snobby, but I'm very strict in a lot of ways about how I think about rating movies. I guess only compared to one another. Like, if I had to say out of 10, I'd probably go around the 8 range myself. But if I think about other movies that I've given like an 8 or 9, maybe it's apples and oranges, but this greatly, greatly exceeded expectations and really delivered a big surprise to me.
Yeah, I'll put it this way. I am glad that I put it on my top 10 anticipated for this year.
Where was it for you?
It was number 10.
Was 10? Okay.
Because I was I was sort of with you. I kind of thought it was going to be a cash grab. I wasn't really sure if they'd put that much effort into it. But I was curious enough that I was definitely going to check it out and make sure I saw it.
Yeah. I knew I would see it. I just didn't know. I definitely didn't think I was going to get what I got.
I mean, I didn't put Logan on my top 10, and that was another one that I really was excited. I'm really, really happy the way that one turned out. I think I still like Logan better.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, this one's definitely did take me by surprise. I will agree with you on that. So, yeah, I think it's probably good enough time to wrap it up. Again, like Josh said, since we've talked probably 2.5 hours on this. So, yeah, if you've enjoyed the show, enjoyed our Power Rangers talk and all the stuff that we usually talk about, please stop by iTunes, leave us a 5-star rating and review. You can share, subscribe, favorite the show, on there or iTunes, or not iTunes, iHeartRadio is the other place to go. That's usually where I link whenever I post them on Facebook. So yeah, you can find us on Facebook too. Search for Bry Guy Super Friends, or go to www.facebook.com/Bry Guy Super Friends. And you can now send us questions, comments, topic suggestions, all that good stuff to bryguysuperfriends@gmail.com, or tweet us at BGSuperFriends on Twitter. And on behalf of Josh and myself, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye.
don't stop recording yet.
Okay.
Real quick, just for fun, I didn't know if it would be fun to, like, after the outro there, almost as, like, outtakes, so to speak, if, you wanted to try recording the other intros that I had sent. or I could do it.
We could, like, sort of alternate if you want. You can do some,
Okay,
I'll do
sure.
some. Welcome to Bry Guy and Super Friends, where our love of Power Rangers will never... See, I can't... I think I try to go too fast.
That's good. Keep that.
Yeah, alright, so you want to give that one a go? Since I fucked that one up.
Sure. Welcome to Bry Guy and his Super Friends, where our love for Power Rangers will never burn out like the green flame candle.
Yeah, see, that was a lot better than mine. Welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and Super Friends, where we hope to convince you that we are more than fully sentient, multifunctional automatons. Yeah, see, that's a lot of big words. I had to slow down and take my time with that.
Welcome to this week's episode of Bry Guy and his Super Friends, where hopefully sometime soon we will morph into a good podcast.
Oh, I missed the one I did.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to another episode of Bry Guy and Super Friends, where we will come back to Earth to pick you up in case you are totally confused.
That's definitely a deep cut. That's also from the first episode. After they're getting some of the explanation from Zordon, Kimberly pipes up, and that's what she says.
Yeah, I didn't get that reference, to be
Will
honest.
somebody come back to Earth and pick me up because I am totally confused.
I think I just
I'll
keep
tell-
your impression in there. Just get rid of
Alright,
mine
you
and
do-
just keep your impression of Kimberly in there.
Welcome to this week's episode of Bry Guy and his Super Friends, where Megazord sequence has been initiated.
You even added, like, robotic voice to it. I don't know if I could do that any better than that.